Little girl runs up to a millionaire CEO in the park, tugs at his sleeve and calls him Daddy. What she reveals shatters his world. But before we dive into the full story, let me know where you're watching from and what time it is. Now, subscribe to the channel and let's get started. The sweltering summer sun hung low over Greenwater City Park, casting elongated shadows that offered precious relief from the day's heat. Families thronged around the playground, parents huddled by wooden benches, children shrieking with glee as they chased each other across the grassy field. Amid this lively chaos, a man in a tailored navy suit stood out like a rare peacock among hens. He carried himself with the poise of someone used to owning every space he occupied. That man was Gabriel Stanton, the CEO of Stanton Innovations, the largest tech conglomerate in the region. Known for his sharp mind and even sharper business dealings, Gabriel seldom ventured anywhere unannounced, let alone a public park. Yet on this day he had come under the guise of sponsoring a children's event, a robotics workshop he'd personally funded. His presence turned heads. Mothers whispered into each other's ears, speculating about his net worth, about the rumored deals that made front-page news. Fathers, some still in casual weekend shorts, offered him firm handshakes, each one acknowledging the mild intimidation of encountering the city's most powerful businessman. All the while, Gabriel smiled politely, though it was clear that behind his calm demeanor, he was watching the clock. He pulled out his phone to send a quick text, some urgent board matter. In typical fashion, not even a community event could proceed without a hint of corporate drama. But what he didn't realize was that just a few yards away, his destiny was quietly unfolding. A small figure peeked from behind the ice cream cart. A little girl, no older than 6, sporting a polka-dotted dress and holding a melting treat that dripped onto her shoes. Her curious eyes settled on Gabriel with instant recognition, like a child seeing a beloved storybook character come to life. She inched closer, hesitating each time the man glanced in her direction. She was small and timid, yet something deep inside her urged her forward. Her heartbeat thundered against her chest, thump, 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 thump. At last she managed to close the distance between them. Then, with unwavering innocence, she spoke. "Daddy?" Gabriel Stanton nearly dropped his phone. A hush fell over the immediate vicinity. Parents paused mid-conversation. Children paused mid-step. It was as if the entire park inhaled collectively. Gabriel blinked, thoroughly perplexed. In front of him stood a little girl with bright eyes, clutching a half-eaten ice cream cone. His mind scrambled for an explanation. Was it a publicity stunt? A stranger's child who got lost and latched onto him in confusion? "Excuse me?" His voice, usually so controlled in boardrooms, wavered. The girl's face lit up. "Daddy, you came! Mommy said you'd be here today." A wave of confusion crashed over him. He had no children. He was certain of that, or at least he thought he was. Quickly scanning the crowd for the mother who might clarify this bizarre misunderstanding, he found only baffled onlookers. Then, from the corner of his eye, he spotted a woman rushing through the parted sea of curious parents. "Amelia!" she called, voice trembling. "Honey, wait! Don't run off like that!" The woman, slightly out of breath, pressed a hand to her chest. Dressed modestly in a simple blouse and jeans, her hair tied back in a loose ponytail, she seemed the polar opposite of the elegantly dressed wives who hovered nearby. Yet her face wore an undeniable blend of determination and fear. Amelia, the little girl, looked from her mother to Gabriel, confusion clouding her bright eyes. "But Mommy, you said my daddy would be here." The woman flushed with embarrassment. She pulled her daughter close, focusing her gaze on Gabriel with a mixture of pleading and apology. I'm so sorry, Mr. Stanton. This must be a misunderstanding." Her throat bobbed as she swallowed hard. "Amelia, sweetie, I said your father might be here, not that—" But Amelia wouldn't budge, hugging her mother's leg as though clinging to a shield. Tears threatened to fall. "He looks just like the picture, Mommy. Are you mad at me?" Gabriel's heart, accustomed to fierce corporate negotiations, suddenly felt unsteady. People's stares bore into him. He needed to act, yet had no plan. He crouched down, meeting Amelia's gaze. "What's your name?" he asked softly, ignoring the uneasy flutter in his stomach. The girl sniffled. Amelia Green." "Amelia," he repeated, glancing toward the woman for confirmation. She nodded, flustered. Something in her eyes suggested a deep reservoir of secrets she'd guarded for years. "My name is Gabriel Stanton," he continued, his voice trying to find a fatherly gentleness foreign to him. "I don't think we've met before." Suddenly, the crowd's hush gave way to murmurs. "Is she really his?" Could it be some ex he forgot about? Why would the mother let the child approach him like that? Every rumor-laced whisper hammered at the woman's composure. She stepped forward, placing a calming hand on Amelia's shoulder. "Mr. Stanton," she said, summoning more confidence than she felt. "My name is Eva Green." Her voice quivered but held a note of dignity. "I need to explain. This is all a misunderstanding. My daughter's father, well, she's never met him. And from an old photograph, she convinced herself that it might be you. You're saying your daughter believes I'm her father because of a photo?" He rose slowly, blinking as confusion turned to caution. "What kind of photo are we talking about?" Eva exhaled shakily. "An old snapshot from years ago. She saw the face, insisted it was you. I tried to correct her, but she's been persistent. She heard you'd be here today for the workshop." Amelia clutched her mother's hand tighter, tears drying on her cheeks. Her eyes flicked to Gabriel's expensive watch, his polished shoes, the faint lines of worry on his face. "Mommy told me Daddy was busy but might show up. I'm sorry." Her small voice faltered as she averted her gaze, suddenly feeling shy. Caught in the crossfire of paternal confusion and sympathetic stares, Gabriel's posture stiffened. "Listen, Ms. Green, it's quite all right. Children sometimes do these things, but—" He hesitated, fighting the swirl of emotions in his head. Pity, curiosity, caution. "Should I call security or—" She cut him off. "No, please no. There's no need to involve security. We'll leave." Her own voice cracked under the pressure. She looked around at the onlookers, some filming with their phones, hungry for a scandal. She could already imagine the tabloids. CEO claimed as father by mysterious child. Just then, a gentle breeze rustled the nearest trees, offering a semblance of calm. Something in Gabriel's chest pinched. As a powerful man, he'd cultivated a no-nonsense reputation, shutting down scandal or trouble with a flick of his wrist. Yet the trembling voice of this little girl and her mother's stricken eyes pulled at a corner of his heart he rarely allowed to feel. "Miss Green, Eva," he said, adopting a quieter tone. "There's clearly a misunderstanding, but we can't solve anything here, nor do I want to create a scene." He glanced at the swirling crowd, cameras poised to capture any dramatic reaction. "Maybe we should speak privately?" Eva bit her lip, uncertain. "Yes, that would be best." She took Amelia's hand and led her a few steps away from the curious onlookers. Gabriel followed. He offered a slight bow of apology to the event organizer, signifying he'd be absent for a moment. The organizer, who recognized the gravity of the situation, simply nodded. Behind a tall oak, Eva tried to gather her words. "I truly never intended for Amelia to run up to you and say that. But she misses her real dad. All I wanted was to show her that her father wasn't who she imagined. We saw your face in an article about the workshop and, well, from the angle you looked so much like—" Gabriel brushed a hand over his face, feeling an odd mixture of relief and sadness at the child's misguided hope. "I see," he said. "So she just believed. She's convinced herself for months. I tried to talk her out of it." Eva's eyes brimmed with tears. "I'm sorry. I'll make sure we disappear. You won't hear from us again." At that, Amelia peered up, confusion clouding her features. "But Mommy—" "Hush, baby." Eva bent to console her daughter. "Let's go." Yet something about that moment, about the heartbreak on Amelia's face, refused to let Gabriel remain silent. A man whose decisions could topple businesses in a day found himself hesitating. "Wait," he said, slipping his phone back into his pocket. "Before you vanish into the crowd, let me do at least one decent thing. Let me buy you and your daughter a drink, or perhaps a snack, somewhere quiet, so we can talk." A flicker of relief, or maybe gratitude, crossed Ava's worried features. "If it's not too much trouble—" Gabriel shook his head. "We'll sort this out together. Come on." With that, he offered Amelia a small smile. She gazed back, still uncertain but soothed by his gentle expression. Together, they left the park, the crowd's whispers chasing them like shadows. None of them knew that this small, impulsive act of kindness would soon unravel a labyrinth of hidden histories, an entire family story he had no idea even existed. Eva Green gripped Amelia's hand as they followed Gabriel along the winding sidewalk that skirted the park. A swirl of conflicting emotions knotted her stomach. Part of her wanted to flee, pack up whatever was left of her dignity, take Amelia home, and never cross paths with this man again. But a larger part whispered that perhaps a few moments of calm conversation might end the confusion once and for all. The trio stopped at a small cafe built into a historical brownstone on the edge of the park. "Barrow and Bloom," read the vintage sign above the door. Wooden tables and mismatched chairs gave the place a quaint charm. Warm lights glowed behind the windows, promising a cocoon of privacy from the gathering chaos outside. Gabriel held open the door and a soft bell jingled overhead. A handful of customers glanced up curiously, their gazes lingering on Gabriel's distinguished posture and expensive suit. He rarely went anywhere without drawing attention, but the tension on Eva's face signaled that he should keep things discreet. Gently, he ushered her and Amelia to a booth near the back. Eva eased into her seat, eyes locked on the chipped tabletop. Amelia sat close to her mother, half hiding behind Eva's arm. Gabriel, choosing the opposite side of the booth, settled in, suppressing a swirl of apprehension. Across countless business negotiations, he'd perfected the art of reading people. But here he found himself uncertain, like a novice faced with a puzzle he never studied. A young waiter approached, offering menus. "Welcome to Barrow and Bloom," he said, voice bright. "What can I get you?" Gabriel glanced at Ava, letting her decide first. She looked down at Amelia, then at the menu. "Just a lemonade for her," she murmured, forcing a smile. "And coffee for me, please. And you, sir?" "Just a coffee," Gabriel replied, aware he wouldn't be able to stomach much else until they'd cleared the air. As the waiter left, an awkward quiet settled between them. Outside, the day pressed on, the murmur of passing pedestrians muffled behind the cafe's door. At last, Gabriel broke the silence. "Ms. Green, Eva." His voice was measured, gentle, but carried the underlying authority that came naturally to him. "You said Amelia saw a picture, one that made her think I'm her father. Could you explain that a bit more?" Eva swallowed hard, her gaze flicking to the handful of patrons reading newspapers or quietly sipping tea. Satisfied no one was listening too closely, she squared her shoulders. "About a year ago, Amelia found an old shoebox in our attic. It was filled with photographs of me during college, friends, classmates. One of those pictures was of me with a man who—" She trailed off, hesitating. "He looked a lot like you, at least from the angle in the photo." Amelia raised her head just enough to peek at Gabriel. "Mommy keeps it in her room now," the girl added quietly. "She said the man in the picture was from a long time ago, but I thought maybe it was you." Gabriel's eyebrows shot up. His gut churned with an uneasy blend of curiosity and dread. "So your daughter assumed," he said slowly, "that because the man in the photo resembled me, I must be her father. Is that correct?" Eva nodded, flushing. I'd never tried to track down her real dad. Our relationship was complicated. I moved away when I found out I was pregnant, and, well, we lost touch. Amelia's father didn't even know. Her words snagged on old pain. Gabriel's chest tightened. He didn't know you were expecting his child? No, Eva whispered. I was young and scared. And let's just say his circumstances weren't stable. I made a choice back then, to raise Amelia on my own. Silence. The emotion in Eva's voice hung in the air like a dense fog. Despite the swirl of questions, Gabriel reminded himself to keep empathy at the forefront. But if this man in the photo looked like me, he ventured, could it have been me? I have no memory of... He paused, considering carefully. I know where I went to college. I know the relationships I had. I'm quite sure I'd remember someone like you. Before Eva could respond, the waiter returned with their drinks, 2 coffees and a lemonade. Amelia, parched from her park adventure, took a long sip, her eyes bouncing warily between her mother and Gabriel. Once the waiter left, Eva exhaled. I went to a public college in Bedford Hills. You attended Ridgemont University, right? He nodded. Ridgemont was nearly 3 hours away from Bedford Hills. Yes, I did. Then it couldn't have been you. There's no way, Eva said with a small, relieved shrug, though her shoulders still trembled. The father was someone named Jesse. That's what I told Amelia, but she built up this fantasy that you were the man in the picture. I think the rumor of your visiting the park for the workshop fed into her hopes. She was so certain that if she saw you in person, it would confirm everything. An unexpected wave of relief trickled through Gabriel. So this Jesse, does he look like me that much? Eva let out a small, wry laugh. It's the hair, the jawline, maybe the posture. But at second glance, no, not really. Amelia probably saw what she wanted to see. Her expression turned apologetic. I never meant for any of this to spill into your life. We've clearly caused you embarrassment. Gabriel's coffee sat untouched. He took a breath, scanning Eva's face, pale with worry, etched with the quiet confidence of a mother who bore life's burdens alone. Listen, he said. I'm not embarrassed, but I am concerned. You said the father never knew about Amelia. So if you're planning to contact him now, after all this time... She shook her head vehemently. No, not after what I learned he got involved in. Her lips pressed into a firm line, recalling painful memories. He was mixed up with some dangerous people. I can't let Amelia be a part of that. A surge of protectiveness stirred in Gabriel, surprising him. That's understandable, he murmured. Then he addressed Amelia directly, adopting a tone he hoped was gentle. I'm sorry you were disappointed, but I'm sure your real father, whoever he is, didn't mean to ignore you. Sometimes adults do foolish things. Amelia blinked, tears threatening to brim. So, you're not my daddy? Eva moved to comfort her. Gabriel felt a spike of guilt slicing through his chest. No, sweet girl, he said softly. I'm not. A tear slipped down Amelia's cheek. She took a shaky breath. Mommy always says you can tell who people are on the inside by the way they treat you. You seem nice. Touched, Gabriel swallowed around the lump in his throat. Thank you, Amelia. Eva turned to him, voice tight with emotion. Mr. Stanton, truly, I'm sorry. We'll leave you be. I'll just settle the confusion with her once we get home. He opened his mouth to respond, but a buzz on his phone interrupted. The CFO from Stanton Innovations, of course. He silenced it, letting the call go unanswered. For one of the first times in his career, his corporate demands could wait. Let me help, he offered quietly. If you need anything, resources, maybe a better job situation, you said you're raising her on your own. It can't be easy. Gabriel rarely offered personal help, yet the heartbreak in Amelia's gaze plus the weight of Eva's solitary struggles, compelled him. Eva shook her head in immediate refusal. "I'm not here for a handout. That's not what this is about. It doesn't have to be charity. I know how complicated life can be for single mothers. If you ever need help, or if you need a stable environment for Amelia." The mention of stability flicked a spark in Eva's eyes, but pride warred with practicality. She studied Gabriel's face, sincere, if a bit uncertain how to proceed. He was a man accustomed to quick deals, not emotional entanglements. Still, she sensed no malice. "Could you just keep in touch?" Eva asked, surprising herself. "Not because Amelia thinks you're her father, she knows better now, but she—" Eva paused, considering how to phrase it. "She doesn't really have positive male role models. Would it be too much to ask for a reference letter or guidance?" Gabriel relaxed, nodding. "I can do that. In fact, maybe a short internship program for local kids at my office or something like that. Amelia's still young, but eventually she could see that the world is big, full of opportunities. I don't want her losing hope." The relief in Eva's smile was palpable, albeit tinged with sadness. "That would mean a lot. Thank you." Amelia watched them with wide eyes, tears still shining. "So, we're not in trouble?" Gabriel's stern facade softened further. "No trouble at all," he reassured. "I'm just sorry you had to go through this confusion." A hush settled again, but this time it wasn't so weighted with tension. The clinking of dishes behind the cafe counter, the soft hum of conversation from other patrons, somehow felt welcoming. For a moment, it seemed they'd reached a peaceful resolution. Then Gabriel's phone vibrated on the tabletop. He recognized the number as his corporate security office. Typically, they'd only call at this hour if there was a serious issue. "Excuse me," he said, picking it up. "Stanton speaking." He listened for a moment, color draining from his face. "What do you mean, a data breach?" he muttered. Another pause. "Fine, I'll handle it. Just keep it contained until I arrive." Eva caught the shift in his demeanor. "Is everything okay?" He quickly ended the call, raking a hand through his dark hair. "Some nonsense at the office. I need to go." Despite the abruptness, he forced a calm expression. "Eva, Amelia, can I call you a car? I don't want you walking if it's out of your way." Eva started to protest, then remembered the scorching weather and Amelia's tired feet. "Actually, that would help. Thank you." "Of course." Gabriel stood, pulling a sleek black card from his wallet and handing it to Eva. "That has a dedicated line to my office. If you need anything, help, references, even day-to-day advice, don't hesitate. And if you prefer, call me directly." She nodded, clasping the card with careful fingers. "Thank you, Gabriel," she said, using his first name for the first time. It felt strange on her tongue, but somehow more human than Mr. Stanton. He placed enough bills on the table to cover the drinks and a generous tip. Then, with a final glance at Amelia, who mustered a small smile, he stepped away. Outside, a blast of heat greeted him. He took one last look at the window of the cafe where the mother and daughter still sat. In that fleeting moment, he sensed he'd crossed an invisible threshold in his life. He had come to the park a confident CEO, secure in his own routines and future. But now, as he hurried off to address the crisis at his company, he couldn't shake the feeling that something monumental had begun. Something with the potential to upend every plan he'd so carefully laid out. He couldn't have known just how pivotal that chance meeting would be. Nor could Eva anticipate the twists fate had in store. They had parted with the intention of simplifying their lives again, but in reality they had unlocked a door to secrets that refused to remain in the past, and it was only a matter of time before those secrets burst into the light. Gabriel Stanton strode into the lobby of Stanton Innovations with purposeful urgency. His reflection tracked him across the polished marble floor, tall, poised, impeccably dressed, yet carrying a tension that made the normally unflappable front desk staff glance in surprise. word of an alleged data breach had reached him barely moments after he'd parted ways with Eva Green and Amelia. He passed through the security gates with a swipe of his ID card. The synergy of glass, steel, and cutting-edge tech displays had always evoked pride in him, proof of his company's unstoppable momentum. But today, even the sleek corridor lights seemed to flicker with an undercurrent of anxiety. It wasn't often that crisis calls pulled him away from personal matters, but when they did, the stakes always ran high. By the time Gabriel entered the executive suite, he was greeted by a swirl of frantic energy. Assistants dashed between offices, balancing tablets and murmuring about lost files. Tech specialists from the cybersecurity department hovered near the floor-to-ceiling windows, engaged in hushed but intense conversation. "Mr. Stanton?" barked Colin Price, the company's CFO and an old friend from Gabriel's Ridgemont days. His voice, usually measured, carried an unmistakable edge. "We've contained the immediate fallout, but you need to see this. I'm afraid it's not just an internal glitch." Gabriel nodded and followed Price into a glass-walled conference room. The blinds were drawn, giving the space a secretive air. A half-dozen department heads were crammed around the table, their faces grim. "Status," Gabriel demanded, skipping pleasantries. A woman in a tailored charcoal suit stood, her ID badge identifying her as Dana Liu, head of cybersecurity. She cleared her throat. "Sir, approximately 20 minutes ago, our automated threat detection systems flagged unauthorized access to sensitive files. The infiltration came from an external IP address, but we suspect an inside hand, someone with knowledge of our file structure." Gabriel's gaze flicked to Price, who remained stiff by the door. "What kind of files?" Dana inhaled. "Product prototypes, staff records, and personal data." A murmur rippled among the department heads. Gabriel's jaw tightened. Personal data at Stanton Innovations included the private details of clients, employees, even occasional subcontractors. "Do we know if any of it was extracted or merely accessed?" Dana pressed a few keys on her tablet. "That's what we're still deciphering, but initial logs suggest attempted downloads." Gabriel's mind raced. "And the breach point? Any leads on who or what?" Price stepped in. "We suspect one of our engineers' credentials were stolen, possibly blackmail or a forced login. We have him in a secured office now, answering questions." Even as the conversation about the breach continued, Gabriel found his attention wavering, his thoughts drifting momentarily back to that cafe, to a little girl's tearful eyes. But he forced himself to focus. "All right, people," he said, voice firm. "Secure everything. Lock down external connections. Dana, I want a full forensics report by tonight. If any competitor or malicious groups behind this, I'll see they're prosecuted." His collected fury rippled through the room. Orders were reiterated, phone calls placed, and the meeting adjourned within minutes. One by one, the managers hurried out, leaving Gabriel and Price alone in the hush. Price let out a slow breath. "We'll do everything we can. Just keep calm. I know you don't like surprises." Gabriel allowed a humorless laugh. "Calm is relative. I'm not about to let years of research get leaked." He narrowed his gaze. "We're dealing with someone either very desperate or very vindictive." Price nodded, lips pursed. "You have any idea who'd want to hurt you or the company, besides our usual competitors?" The question hung in the air, dread coiling in Gabriel's stomach. He'd made plenty of rivals climbing to the top of the industry, but none had the brazen gall to pull a direct sabotage. At least that was what he always told himself. He turned his back to Price, gazing out over the city skyline. "I'm not sure," he said finally, "but find out. Use all resources necessary." A short while later, Gabriel retreated to his private office, sinking into the black leather chair behind a massive desk. The city sprawled below, shimmering in the midday light. Normally, he found that view a potent reminder of his accomplishments. Today, it felt oddly hollow. His mind again wandered to Ava and her child. If the day's events taught him anything, It was that unexpected intrusions into one's life could turn it upside down in a heartbeat. He recalled Ava's expression, torn between pride and vulnerability, and the old photo that sparked Amelia's confusion. For a fleeting moment, he wondered if he had indeed met Ava at some point and forgotten. But no, her story was consistent. Bedford Hills wasn't on his map back then, and their conversation had rung with sincerity. Shaking off the memory, he tapped his intercom. "Janet, hold all calls except those from Price or Dana." "Yes, Mr. Stanton," came his assistant's prompt reply. He then turned to his computer and keyed in a code, bringing up sensitive files under his direct authorization. The list of restricted projects, next-generation microchips, AI prototypes, advanced robotics. If those were compromised, the entire industry and many government bodies would be in an uproar. In the hush, he typed out an email to the board members and major investors, providing a tactful, minimal disclosure update on a cybersecurity incident currently under control. Even as he wrote, he felt the mild churn of frustration. Why now? Why a breach out of nowhere? Finally, he closed his laptop and allowed himself a moment to breathe. His phone chimed softly, another text message from an unknown number. Eyeing it warily, he tapped to open. "Better watch your back. Some secrets can ruin everything." A chill passed through him. No signature, no clue as to the sender. But the words rang with a personal threat. He considered showing it to Price or Dana, yet something told him to wait. He wanted more context. He locked the phone, exhaling through clenched teeth. Over the years, he'd received vague threats from ex-employees or rival entrepreneurs, but this felt different, intimate, almost as if whoever wrote it knew him well. His thoughts drifted to Ava's mention of Amelia's father, Jesse, who was mixed up with dangerous people. But that had to be unrelated. Why would that affect Stanton Innovations? Unless... No, he dismissed the notion. Merely coincidence. Still, the text's timing nagged at him. A swirl of possibilities formed in his mind, each more unsettling than the last. Minutes ticked by. He had to get back to work. But as he scanned the day's schedule on his phone, he noticed the black business card he'd handed Eva was not just for her. His personal line was printed on the back. She now had the power to reach him directly, an odd vulnerability, given how carefully he protected that number. With a slight shake of his head, Gabriel shoved aside his personal thoughts and refocused on the crisis at hand. Meanwhile, across town, Eva Green sat at a small desk in her modest apartment. Amelia had just curled up for her afternoon nap, exhausted from the emotional roller coaster at the park. Eva's own heart still pounded, replaying the events of that morning, questioning whether she'd handled everything correctly. She had called a rideshare, as Gabriel suggested, and let the driver take them home. The air conditioner rattled faintly now, fighting off the lingering summer heat. She rummaged through her purse and found the black card with its silver lettering. Gently, she ran her thumb over the name, Gabriel Stanton, CEO. She huffed a laugh, bitter and disbelieving. How life could twist so unexpectedly. One moment, she was promising her daughter closure about her absent father. The next, she was sipping coffee with a man who owned half the city's tech industry. Her mind flicked back to the father who had never met Amelia, the father whose face was an echo from a riskier time in her life. She'd parted from Jesse in confusion and fear, and what she'd discovered afterward confirmed the wisdom of staying gone. Yet Eva never stopped feeling uneasy about the potential for that chapter to resurface. Jesse's associates had a knack for unraveling secrets, sniffing out vulnerabilities. Now, worry gripped her at the thought that Amelia's confusion might open a door to the very dangers Eva had sought to avoid. She pressed her eyes shut, remembering the unwavering kindness Gabriel had shown, even while refusing to be anything more than a gentle bystander in her life. The phone on her desk buzzed. Her sister, who lived a few states away. Eva answered, forcing a cheerful tone. "Hey, Rach. Hey, yourself. You sound tired. Everything okay? Eva hesitated, tempted to spill the entire bizarre morning, but she bit her lip. She'd rather not alarm her sister with half-explanations. Yeah, just dealing with random stuff. Amelia's fine. They chatted briefly about family news. Rachel mentioned a job opening in her town, an office position that paid better than Eva's current arrangement as a temp receptionist. But it was too far away. Uprooting Amelia again felt too exhausting. By the time Eva ended the call, her thoughts circled back to the black business card. She knew better than to rely on the charity of strangers. But something about Gabriel's quiet offer, if you ever need help, guidance, echoed in her mind. As she mulled over whether to reach out, a faint sound caught her attention. Amelia, stirring from her nap. Eva placed the card on the desk, quickly tidied her hair, and went to her daughter's side. The child blinked awake, her eyelashes glistening with leftover tears. "Mommy?" Eva brushed Amelia's hair back lovingly. "Yes, sweetie? Why did you say that man wasn't Daddy?" Amelia's voice trembled with leftover confusion. "He was nice, and I dreamed about him. He was smiling at me." Eva's heart clenched. "I know, baby. He's a nice man, but he's not ours." She pressed a gentle kiss to Amelia's temple. "One day we'll talk more about your real dad. Just not now. I need you to trust me." Amelia gave a small nod, nestling closer. "Okay, Mommy." Eva pulled her into a warm hug, her thoughts spinning with guilt. She hated the secrets she kept from her daughter, but the truth was tangled in fear and uncertainty. Jesse's shadow loomed too large. His old ties were dangerous. Back at Stanton Innovations, the sun sank lower, painting the skyline in brilliant oranges and pinks. Gabriel peered through his office window, phone in hand, scanning yet another cryptic text from an unknown sender. "I warned you. Old mistakes have a way of catching up." He frowned, anxiety pinching his brow. The phrase, "old mistakes," echoed oddly. Did it reference a dormant scandal from his college days? A business deal gone sour, or something else entirely? He typed a curt response. "Who is this?" Then hit send, waiting. No reply came. Dana had sent over a partial forensic report indicating no major data had left the building. That was a relief, but the attempted breach was definitely targeted, and they still didn't know why. Gabriel paced his office, fists clenched, mind swirling with half-formed theories. Maybe it truly was a competitor's sabotage, or maybe a disgruntled former employee. But the ominous texts felt more personal than that. As night blanketed the city, Gabriel finally locked his office and left, heading to the private elevator that led to the underground parking. The monotone hum of fluorescent lights accompanied him as he walked to his car. At times, he thought he caught footsteps echoing behind him, but each time he turned, there was no one. He slid into the driver's seat, heart pounding. The day had begun in confusion and ended in looming paranoia. With a weary sigh, he started the engine. Through the tinted windshield, the city's lights glittered like a promise or a threat. Somewhere far from the corporate towers and data breaches, a mother and child were likely winding down their evening. And in the back of his mind, Gabriel couldn't deny that he felt connected to them in a way he couldn't fully explain. As the car ascended the ramp and merged into the night traffic, he made a mental note to keep his phone close. Because somehow, he suspected that the next call or message, be it from the unknown sender or from Eva, would push him further into the mystery he had unknowingly stepped into. Night had fully settled over the bustling city by the time Gabriel Stanton pulled into the underground garage beneath his condominium tower. The sleek lines of his luxury sedan glinted under the fluorescent lights as he parked. He shut off the engine and lingered in the driver's seat, muscles tense, phone still in his grip. He half expected another anonymous text to flash across the screen at any moment, but the device remained silent. In the hushed corners of the garage, distant footsteps echoed, then faded away. Gabriel exhaled a weary breath. A day that began with the shock of a little girl calling him Daddy had spiraled into corporate sabotage, cryptic threats, and a gnawing sense that something bigger loomed on the horizon. He exited the car, scanning the dimly lit space for anything suspicious. It was habit now, especially after the strange messages. He saw no one. With purposeful strides, he headed to the private elevator that led directly to his penthouse. Once inside, the sleek elevator ascended smoothly, whisper quiet. Gabriel gazed at his reflection in the polished steel doors. He noticed faint shadows under his eyes, signs of the day's stress. He couldn't ignore the odd sense of guilt that kept tugging at him, as though he'd left Eva and Amelia in turmoil. But rationally, he knew there was no fatherly duty to fulfill. When the doors slid open, he stepped into the foyer of his penthouse, a sprawling modern space with floor-to-ceiling windows that showcased the city lights. Everything about it exuded power and taste. Neutral tones, minimalist furniture, curated art pieces. But tonight, it felt oppressively still, as though the emptiness pressed in on him. He tossed his suit jacket over a chair and loosened his tie. Without bothering to turn on more than a single lamp, he walked to the kitchen to pour himself a glass of water. The digital clock on the stovetop read nearly 10 p.m. He debated whether to check his work email again, but the memory of that chilling text, "Some secrets can ruin everything," held him back. What secrets? He took a sip of water, turned off the kitchen light, and retreated to his living room. There, he flicked on a single reading lamp and sank into the leather couch, phone resting on the coffee table in front of him. For a moment, he let the city's nighttime glow wash over his thoughts. A gentle trill cut the silence. Someone was buzzing up from the lobby. He frowned, glancing at the phone's screen. His building's security system displayed a name: Colin Price. Gabriel sighed. Maybe the CFO brought new information. He pressed the accept button. Send him up. Moments later, a knock sounded at the door. Gabriel opened it to reveal Price, still in the same tie and vest from earlier, though now looking more disheveled. He clutched a folder under one arm and wore a grim expression. "Sorry for dropping by like this," Price said, stepping into the penthouse. "But I figured it couldn't wait." Gabriel shut the door behind him. "You've got news?" Price nodded, heading straight to the living room. "Something you need to see. Dana and the security team discovered more about that infiltration. It's not just random data. And the hacker didn't come for product prototypes." A pang of dread lodged in Gabriel's chest. So it wasn't about corporate espionage? Price set the folder on the coffee table. "We think they targeted your personal files specifically. Financial statements, travel records, and one file in particular, a sealed HR folder connected to you." Gabriel felt his blood run cold. "My HR folder is standard. It just covers my executive contract, performance evaluations, and—" Price cut him off. "And some confidentiality agreements from years ago." He opened the folder, revealing a page with Gabriel's signature. "Remember that scandal with an ex-employee who threatened to leak personal info about you if you didn't pay hush money? The legal team put it under special lock and key." Gabriel's jaw tensed. He recalled that fiasco vaguely. Someone in the marketing department had circulated rumors about his personal life, implying he used offshore accounts in ethically gray ways. The whole matter was settled out of court. Why would they come after that now? Price sank into an armchair. "We don't know. But it might tie in with the text messages you mentioned." Gabriel rubbed his temples. The memory of the day's second cryptic text flashed in his mind. "I warned you. Old mistakes have a way of catching up." "So you're saying whoever orchestrated this breach wanted to dredge up dirt on me personally, not just on Stanton Innovations?" "Exactly." Heat flared in Gabriel's gut, anger mixed with a tinge of fear. "But what's the connection?" Price sighed, shrugging. "It could be a jealous competitor. Or maybe it's someone with a grudge from your past. If it's the latter, there's no telling how far they'll go. Gabriel pressed his lips into a thin line. We'll secure everything, double the watch on my files, shift the server protocols again, and find out which employees might be compromised. Already in motion, Price said. Then his voice softened. Gabriel, you've worked too hard to let some skeleton from your past sabotage you. We'll handle it. He nodded, but couldn't shake the uneasy feeling. Thanks. I appreciate you coming in person. Price cast a glance around the penthouse. You all right? You look on edge. Gabriel could have mentioned the swirl of confusion about Ava and Amelia, but he wasn't sure how that would sound. Instead, he forced a thin smile. It's been a day. I'll manage. Price understood that tone. It was Gabriel's way of deflecting. Get some rest. I'll see myself out. When he left, Gabriel stood by the door for a long moment, tension radiating through his shoulders. The threat felt disturbingly personal. In his years climbing the corporate ladder, he'd faced lawsuits, blackmail attempts, and smear campaigns. But something about the timbre of these new warnings, hinting at old mistakes, made his skin crawl. He sank onto the couch again, letting the quiet wrap around him. Memories nudged at the corners of his mind, small missteps in his youth, harsh breakups, or maybe a business deal that ended on bad terms. He had no illusions about being a saint, but no single past event stood out as a ticking time bomb. And yet the messages suggested otherwise. His phone vibrated. Heart lurching, he grabbed it, expecting another cryptic text. Instead, he saw an unknown number calling. The screen displayed no name. He inhaled deeply and answered. Hello. Silence on the other end. Gabriel's heart hammered. Who is this? He repeated. A faint crackle, then a distorted voice as though manipulated by software. You think I've forgotten Gabriel Stanton? His grip tightened on the phone. You're the one sending those messages? A hiss of static. I warned you years ago. Now all your secrets will come to light if you don't comply. Gabriel's pulse pounded in his ears. If I don't comply with what? The voice gave a low, unnatural chuckle. You'll know soon enough. The line clicked dead. Gabriel cursed under his breath, immediately trying to trace the call. But it was too late. The number was masked. He stood there in the darkness, phone still clutched in his hand, mind racing. The person implied they'd warned him years ago. But about what? He racked his brain for a moment in time when someone might have demanded something from him. Yet no immediate memory emerged, just a blurred mosaic of business deals, threatened lawsuits, or short-lived personal entanglements. Enough. He needed to calm his swirling thoughts. Setting the phone aside, he walked to the window. The city skyline glittered innocently. Could it be a bluff, or would more demands follow? He closed his eyes, drew in a long breath, then let it out slowly. The events of the day weighed on him, but a single, unexpected thought kept surfacing. In the park that morning, Amelia's wide, hopeful eyes had gazed at him with a tender innocence, like she believed he could be her protector. He was no father, but that look stirred something within him, a reminder that genuine vulnerability still existed in the world. He found himself wishing life could be that simple, seeing someone with good intentions and trusting them. But trust in his cutthroat corporate domain was scarce, and trust, in the face of ominous phone calls and stolen files, was downright reckless. At length, he forced himself to move away from the window. Sleep was out of the question. Too many alarms were ringing in his head. Instead, he poured a small glass of whiskey and walked to his home office, determined to at least attempt some productivity. If the night demanded his vigilance, so be it. Across town, Eva Green also found sleep elusive. She lay in bed, half-propped by pillows, the apartment illuminated only by a street lamp's glow seeping through drawn curtains. Amelia's gentle breathing from the next room was a fragile lullaby that couldn't quell Eva's restless mind. She clutched her phone, her thumb hovering over the black business card on her nightstand. Gabriel's direct line. She wasn't foolish enough to think a single phone call could solve her problems, but she did wonder if a small gesture, maybe an email or text, would help maintain that bridge he'd offered. She could ask about the internship idea or resources for a new job, yet doubt gnawed at her. She didn't want to seem opportunistic, and more importantly, she worried that contacting him again could draw unwanted attention. If Jessie's old associates realized she had even a tenuous connection to one of the city's most influential businessmen, it could make her a target. Still, the memory of Amelia's tearful question, "So, you're not my daddy?" echoed painfully. If only she could explain everything to her daughter without risking more heartbreak, without risking their safety. She turned the card over, reading the embossed phone number in the dim light. A compromise formed in her mind. A brief text, nothing revealing, just a short thank you for his kindness at the cafe. Then she'd let him be. Hands trembling slightly, she typed, "Hello, Mr. Stanton. This is Eva Green. Just wanted to say thank you for being so understanding today. Amelia is calmer now, and I appreciate the kindness you showed." She stared at the message for a few seconds before adding, "No need to reply. Wishing you the best." Then she hit send, heart pounding. Perhaps it was silly, but she wanted to leave things on a positive, grateful note, especially after the emotional storm of that morning. Setting her phone back on the nightstand, she leaned her head against the pillow and tried to relax. Her life was complicated enough without pulling Gabriel deeper into it. No matter how well-intentioned he might be, she couldn't risk letting him see the shadows that lurked in her past. Outside, a motorcycle roared down the street, headlights flashing briefly across her curtains. Then quiet fell again. She took a slow breath, forcing her tense muscles to unwind. Amelia needed her rested and strong. Sometime after midnight, Gabriel emerged from a haze of reading contract documents in his home office. His phone pinged with a new notification. Heart leaping, he checked the screen. Eva Green, a subdued warmth spread through his chest as he read her text. Nothing dramatic, just a courteous acknowledgement of the morning's bizarre encounter. It shouldn't have given him relief, but it did. In a day marred by suspicion and threats, that small note felt like a flicker of normalcy. He hesitated, considering whether to respond. She said, no need to reply, after all, but some part of him felt compelled to at least reassure her that he'd read it. So, with quiet deliberation, he typed back, "I'm glad Amelia is feeling better. Please let me know if either of you needs anything. Take care." He sat there, phone in hand, replaying the events that brought him to this moment. For all the corporate chaos, for all the cryptic threats, the brief exchange with Ava provided a strange sense of grounding. A reminder that not every connection in life was about power or leverage. But as he finally shut off his home office light and walked toward his bedroom, the lingering threat calls still pressed on his mind. Something told him that the day's chaos was merely the first gust of a coming storm, one that might soon pull him, Eva, and Amelia into deeper trouble than any of them had bargained for. Morning dawned under a hazy sky, the sun a pale disk behind gray clouds. By the time Gabriel Stanton reached his office, the city was already alive with the sounds of rush-hour traffic. Yet behind the tinted windows of Stanton Innovations, a guarded hush lingered from the previous day's drama. Everyone walked on eggshells, the air thick with speculation about the hack, about potential leaks, about who might be implicated next. Stepping into the executive suite, Gabriel found Dana Liu, head of cybersecurity, waiting for him beside his assistant's desk. She looked as though she'd spent a sleepless night hunched over computer screens. "Morning," Gabriel greeted, adjusting his cufflinks. "Any updates?" Dana offered him a tablet containing lines of code and file reports. "My team managed to reconstruct part of the breach. The intruder tried to download segments of your personal data, but it appears they only got fragments. Nothing complete. We also identified a secondary infiltration attempt aimed at HR records. Someone wanted to dig deeply into your background. He frowned. So they were after personal dirt, not corporate secrets. Her expression turned grim. Yes, sir, and we're still not sure they didn't succeed in grabbing something. Gabriel suppressed a sigh, nodding for Dana to follow him into his office. He shut the door behind them, his mind flickering over the threatening calls and texts. Any leads on the source? Dana settled into a chair, pushing her glasses up her nose. We traced the IP address to a rented server overseas. Classic masking technique. Could be anyone. We'll keep digging. Good, he said, tension edging his voice. I have a feeling this is more personal than business. Step up your firewalls, rotate passcodes for all senior staff, and coordinate with Colin Price about any questionable employees. Dana's phone buzzed. She glanced at it, then back at Gabriel. Yes, Mr. Stanton, I'll get right on it. Once she left, Gabriel eased into his chair, posture rigid. The penthouse might have been a lonely place last night, but the office this morning felt like a war room. He opened his laptop, scanning emails marked urgent. One subject line glared at him. Inquiry from Burke and Linden, the law firm that handled Stanton Innovations' legal matters. He clicked it. The message was brief and formal, requesting a meeting about recent events and any personal liabilities that might affect corporate interests. Gabriel closed it, frustration mounting. Of course, the lawyers smelled potential crisis and wanted to cover every angle. A sharp knock on the door pulled him from his thoughts. Janet, his assistant, poked her head in. Mr. Stanton, there's a young lady here. She says she's delivering something for you personally. Gabriel arched an eyebrow. A messenger? Not exactly. She insists it's a private delivery. Should I send her to security? He considered for a moment, images of unknown threats flashing through his mind. Let security check her bag, then bring her up. Moments later, Janet returned with a young woman in her early 20s, dressed in plain jeans and a hoodie. She carried a flat cardboard box tied with a ribbon. Her gaze darted nervously around the posh office suite. "Mr. Stanton?" she asked, stepping forward. Her voice trembled slightly. I have a delivery for you. A gift, I guess. I'm just the courier." He stood, eyeing the box warily. "A gift from whom?" The woman shrugged. "The instructions said to bring this to you directly. No signature required, and not to say who sent it. I was hired through an online gig platform, that's all I know." A chill prickled across his skin, but he maintained a calm facade. "All right, you can set it on the table." She did so, looking relieved to relinquish it. "Thanks. If you're good, I'll be going." Gabriel nodded at Janet, who escorted the messenger out. The moment they vanished, Gabriel approached the box cautiously, remembering the infiltration and the threats. Who on earth would send him something like this anonymously? He loosened the ribbon and peeled open the lid. Inside lay a single photograph, placed atop what looked like a folded piece of thick stationery. The photograph was old, edges yellowed, showing a group of college students gathered in a courtyard. His heart skipped a beat. He recognized Ridgemont University's ivy-covered walls in the background. And there, someone who looked like him stood off to one side, next to a blonde woman whose face was partially obscured by a friend's shoulder. Gabriel remembered being in plenty of group photos, but he couldn't pinpoint this exact scene. Curious and uneasy, he lifted the paper underneath. It wasn't stationery at all, but a single sheet of typewriter-like text, the letters sharp and dark. "You see, Gabriel? Some memories never truly fade. You look so carefree here, before you made your mistakes. Think carefully about what you do next. No signature, no date, just the photo and that ominous note." A wave of anger rolled through him. He flipped the photo again, scanning the faces. He was maybe 19 or 20 in it, hair slightly longer, a confident grin, his arm around a friend whose name he struggled to recall. Could it be Roland? Perhaps. Or maybe Carter. So many acquaintances from back then. But who was the blonde woman partly hidden? Was that an old girlfriend? Or someone else entirely? Gabriel strained to remember, but it felt like trying to recall a dream. He looked at the note again. Before you made your mistakes. The phrase echoed what the distorted caller said about old mistakes. Another layer of cryptic menace linking past and present. Shaken, he shoved both items back into the box. He'd have his security team analyze them, maybe dust for prints, though the messenger presumably wore gloves. More than ever, he sensed a tightening net around him. But from which direction, and for what ultimate goal, he couldn't say. A few miles away, Eva Green started her day at the small community center where she volunteered a few hours each week. She'd set aside her phone, determined to focus on something positive. Working with children from underprivileged families, helping them with reading or basic math, usually steadied her nerves. But today, she felt scattered. Memories of the previous morning, Amelia's heartbreak, Gabriel's kindness, kept intruding. Every time the door opened, she had a fleeting thought it might be him, though she knew that was irrational. Around noon, she stepped outside to get some fresh air. The center's playground was modest. A swing set, a small slide, a few weathered benches. Summer heat shimmered off the pavement. Eva found a shaded spot beneath a tree, sipping from a water bottle, eyes half closed as she tried to ease her mind. "Hey there," said a familiar voice. Eva opened her eyes to see Henry, the community center's coordinator, with a friendly smile. "You okay? You seem a bit off today." She mustered a polite shrug. "I'm fine, just a lot on my mind." He nodded. "Well, we can always use extra help if you want to dive in and get your mind off things. The kids love Miss Eva's story time." A faint smile touched her lips. "I'll join them in a bit, thanks." Henry headed back inside. Eva remained under the tree, letting the light breeze ruffle her hair. If only life's dilemmas could be soothed as easily as reading a picture book to children. She pulled out her phone, debating whether to check for any reply from Gabriel. To her mild surprise, she found a text notification. "I'm glad Amelia is feeling better. Please let me know if either of you needs anything. Take care." She felt her heart lift. Warmth and relief mingled, though she told herself not to overinterpret. He was just being polite. Still, it was a kind gesture, and at least it put to rest her concern that she'd intruded on his life. She thought about replying, maybe a simple "thank you," but something stopped her. It felt safer to give him space, at least for now. Instead, she tucked the phone away, telling herself that if she truly needed his help someday, he'd already opened that door. Unaware that at that very moment Gabriel was grappling with a ghost from his past, Eva made her way back into the community center to read fairy tales to a group of giggling kids. Up in his executive office, Gabriel laid the photo and note on his desk under a small, focused lamp. He summoned Price and Dana to see them. Both scrutinized the items, exchanging uneasy glances. Dana scanned the photo into a secure computer, running facial recognition software on the visible faces. "If any of these people show up in recent or related data, we'll know," she murmured. Price shook his head. "So someone dug up an old photo of you at Ridgemont and sent it as a warning? This is personal, all right. Could it have something to do with, well, the meltdown you mentioned from freshman year?" Gabriel stiffened. "I had some rough patches then, but nothing that would morph into blackmail. At least, not that I recall." Price frowned. "Could it be some ex-girlfriend carrying a grudge? Or maybe the sibling of someone you crossed?" Gabriel's jaw tensed. He'd never been callous enough to spark a vendetta, had he? "We can't rule anything out." Dana studied the typed note. "We'll check for unusual fonts, printing methods, but it's likely generic. They're taunting you, trying to rattle your nerves." Gabriel's gaze flickered toward the window, where the high-rise skyline offered no comfort. "They're succeeding," he muttered. He stood abruptly, arms crossed. "Dana, keep investigating. Price, coordinate with legal. If someone tries to leak anything publicly, we need immediate damage control." His mind churned as Price and Dana left. The photo felt like a puzzle piece he couldn't place. Who was behind it? What did they want? He wondered if it was connected to the infiltration at all, or if the infiltration was just a smokescreen. The rest of the afternoon dragged. Gabriel lurched from one meeting to another, feigning calm in boardrooms and phone conferences, yet a tight coil of anxiety remained lodged in his chest. By day's end he was exhausted, mentally, physically, and emotionally. Slumping into the back seat of his chauffeur-driven car, he rarely used a driver, but Price insisted for safety's sake today, Gabriel allowed himself a moment to shut his eyes. The city lights blinked past, but all he saw in his mind's eye was that old photograph, a younger version of himself, carefree and smiling, completely unaware that his future held such twisting corridors. And then, just as he felt he might drift into restless slumber, another image pushed forward. Amelia's small face, looking at him with honest trust, even though he wasn't her father. That memory poked at him like a soft reminder that not all of life's complexities were malignant. Some were just vulnerable. He rubbed his temples. If only he could unravel which parts of his past might be weaponized against him. If only he could ensure that Eva and Amelia stayed clear of whatever storm was gathering. Because a quiet voice whispered that the little girl's innocent mistake, calling him Daddy, might prove to be just the beginning of a domino effect that no one could fully control. Gabriel's driver navigated the late evening streets, weaving past illuminated storefronts and the neon glow of bustling restaurants. Inside the car, Gabriel's thoughts churned restlessly. The day had stretched into one long, disconcerting puzzle, each clue hinting at a distant piece of his past. He glanced at his reflection in the window, tired eyes, jaw set in grim determination. He couldn't shake the feeling that he was missing some critical link. Someone out there wanted to rattle him, to threaten him, maybe to expose him. But expose what? His phone vibrated softly. Hoping for new intel from Dana or Price, he lifted it from his pocket. Instead, the screen displayed a message from the legal team at Burke and Linden, a reminder of his upcoming meeting, plus a polite request for him to forward any personal documents they should review in light of the breach. The dryness of corporate language only made his anxiety spike further. He typed a curt response. "Understood. We'll bring any relevant files tomorrow." Then he closed his phone, wishing for a reprieve. Soon, the car turned onto a quiet, tree-lined street, a route Gabriel had specifically instructed. He wanted to avoid heading directly to his penthouse, at least for a moment. Instead, he told the driver to loop past a nearby park. Not the one from the day before, but a smaller, tucked-away green space. When they pulled up to the curb, Gabriel asked the driver to wait. He stepped out, inhaling the cool night air. The hush of rustling leaves under street lamps gave him a momentary sense of solitude. Sometimes, in times of great stress, he'd find an empty bench and sit, letting his mind wander. But he wasn't fully alone. A couple strolled by, arm in arm. A jogger's silhouette skimmed across the sidewalk. With a faint shrug, Gabriel drifted toward a bench near a lamppost, the glow making his shadow stretch across the grass. He pictured the older photograph that had arrived in that mysterious box. A younger Gabriel in college, an era he rarely revisited. Back then, ambition boiled in his veins, but he was still raw, unpolished. He could recall nights fueled by late-hour pizza and last-minute cramming, the messy swirl of dating and breakups, typical youthful drama, but nothing that suggested a venomous enemy. He dug into the far corners of his memory, freshman mixers, dorm pranks, the day he first met certain classmates who later formed an entrepreneurial circle. One of them, Roland, had parted ways on uneasy terms, but they'd reconciled eventually. Or so Gabriel had assumed. Could it be Roland? No, that felt far-fetched. His phone vibrated again. This time, it was Price. The tension in Gabriel's chest eased slightly. Finally, a direct update. "Yes?" Gabriel said, pressing the phone to his ear. "I'm still at the office," Price answered, sounding drained. Dana's run partial face matches from that group photo. She identified at least 2 people, Carter Withers and Allison Boyd, both Ridgemont classmates of yours. She hasn't confirmed the others yet. Gabriel paced near the bench. "Carter. We were friendly, though not close. Allison—" He paused, rummaging through old recollections. "She was an economics major, right? What's the significance?" Price sighed. "Unclear. We can't say if they're behind it, but we'll do background checks. Maybe they can shed light on who else was in that photo." Gabriel nodded to himself. "Keep me posted. And Price. Thanks for staying on this." He hung up, slipping the phone into his pocket. Carter and Allison. The names rang mild bells, but no klaxons of betrayal. He resumed his slow walk, noticing the quiet gleam of the driver's car waiting under the next lamppost. Before he could gather further thoughts, his phone buzzed yet again. A sense of déjà vu pricked at him. So many interruptions tonight. He glanced at the screen, reading the caller ID. No caller ID. His pulse quickened. With a steadying breath, he accepted the call. "Who is it?" The same faint static answered before a distorted voice emerged. "Found some old friends of yours, I see. Did your team discover the rest yet?" Gabriel's free hand clenched into a fist. "Show yourself instead of playing these games. What do you want?" A low, artificial chuckle crackled through the speaker. "I want you to remember your mistakes before I make them public." "I have nothing to hide," Gabriel bit out, anger lacing his tone. "Oh, but you do," said the voice, dripping with confidence. "You're so certain you can bury your past. Let's see if you can bury this. Keep looking at that photo, Gabriel, and maybe you'll recall exactly what you owe." The line went dead. Gabriel stood rigid, phone still pressed to his ear as the dial tone hissed. Then, with a growl of frustration, he ended the call. He felt cornered, hounded by threats with no clear direction. Eventually, he forced himself to return to the car and nodded for the driver to head home. On the ride back, he resolved to press forward. If Carter or Allison were involved, or if they merely held keys to unraveling the puzzle, he'd track them down. At that same twilight hour, Eva was attempting to tuck Amelia into bed. The child was restless, fidgeting with her teddy bear. A single bedside lamp cast a gentle glow over the small bedroom, its pale purple walls lined with stickers of stars and moons. "Mommy, can I have another story?" Amelia pleaded, eyes bright despite the hour. Eva brushed the girl's hair back. "I've already read 3. Don't you think it's time to sleep?" Amelia pouted. "I'm not sleepy yet." Then, in a quieter voice, she added, "Sometimes I have bad dreams." Eva's heart pinched. "What kind of bad dreams?" The little girl shrugged, hugging her teddy closer. "I see a man in the dark, and he's shouting. I can't see his face." A cold trickle of fear washed through Eva. She suspected the nightmares sprang from overhearing bits of adult conversations, perhaps memories of tension around her father's name. Eva had tried so hard to shield her daughter from that pain, from those ghostly threats. Gently, she smoothed Amelia's comforter. "Mommy's here, sweetie, and no one's going to hurt you." Amelia nodded, though she still looked uncertain. "Mr. Stanton was nice. He didn't shout." Eva felt her cheeks warm. "No, he didn't. He's a good person, I think." Her daughter's gaze flicked across the dim room. "Can we see him again?" This question made Ava's heart dip. "I don't know. He's a busy man. Remember, he's not your daddy, honey." Amelia lowered her eyes. "I know." A pause. "But I feel safe with him. Like he protects people." Eva forced a smile, tucking the comforter around Amelia's shoulders. "Get some rest. I'll be right in the next room if you need me." After a soft good-night kiss, She switched off the lamp, leaving only a small nightlight shaped like a cloud. She closed the door partway behind her, chest tight with worry. Amelia's yearning for a paternal figure stirred Eva's guilt and fear. That void was something she couldn't fill alone, and definitely not with the man her daughter had mistaken for a father. Still, she felt relief recalling Gabriel's text from earlier. At least he wasn't upset. He'd extended a hand of kindness, and that was more than she'd hoped for. In the living area, Eva sank onto the worn couch, flicking on the TV for background noise. A local news anchor droned about municipal budgets and upcoming events. She tried to lose herself in the mundane updates, anything to quiet the swirl of thoughts. Yet the news ended with a jolt of unease. The anchor announced an ongoing police investigation into a suspected break-in at a major firm. Though no company name was confirmed, the camera panned to a building that Eva recognized as belonging to Stanton Innovations. Something about a potential data breach. The coverage was vague, but it rattled her. He must be under a lot of pressure, she thought. No wonder he'd been so tense in that text message, even while being polite. Another pang of conscience nudged her. Would it be too forward to check on him again? Probably. She decided against it, didn't want to seem intrusive. However, a small voice in the back of her mind whispered that the trouble swirling around Gabriel might intersect with her own life in unexpected ways. After all, secrets had a way of tangling together, no matter how separate they seemed at first. The night wore on. At Gabriel's penthouse, he sat in his study, an overhead lamp illuminating the old group photo once again. He studied each face, scanning the background details. Ridgemont University's main courtyard, someone's large backpack in the corner, a stray banner that read Spring Fair. His phone lay within reach, locked and silent. He had half a mind to call Carter or Allison, but it was too late for that now. He'd try to track them down come morning. He also considered calling the investigator who once handled that hush money scandal. Maybe that man could pry deeper into Gabriel's college years, but a wave of reluctance swept through him. He hated dredging up the past. He hated feeling powerless, like some intangible ghost was picking at old scabs. At last, he set the photo aside, eyes burning with fatigue. He couldn't solve the puzzle tonight. He wandered to the living room and poured a glass of water, gazing at the city's endless sprawl outside. Lights flickered like distant stars. He found himself thinking about Eva, her quiet dignity, her soft-spoken manner. He recalled Amelia's hopeful eyes. That sense of protectiveness he felt toward them was odd, given their short acquaintance, yet it refused to fade, especially as he recognized that any blow to his reputation, any scandal, might inadvertently cast a shadow on them too. If his enemies started sniffing around, might they discover his meeting with Eva and twist it into some tabloid drama? The thought filled him with a spike of protectiveness. No, he told himself, he'd keep them out of this, or at least do his best. He returned to the study once more, flipping open his laptop. With renewed resolve, he typed a list of names from memory. Every old friend, classmate, or vague acquaintance who might have posed for that photo. Carter Withers, Allison Boyd, Roland Green, Derek something, Anna, he wasn't sure. Roland Green. The name jumped out at him as he typed. Green. He recalled it from the old days, though Roland was not related to Eva Green, at least not that Gabriel knew. The last he'd heard, Roland traveled overseas. But the identical last name made him pause. Was it merely coincidence? He felt a chill. The possibility of a link between Roland Green and Eva Green sparked 100 new questions. Could she be related to someone from his circle without either of them knowing? Gabriel tried to recall if Roland ever mentioned a sister or cousin named Eva. Nothing stood out in memory. Then again, how many late-night dorm conversations had blurred over the years? A sudden wave of exhaustion crashed in. He rubbed his eyes, deciding it was best to get some rest. The half-formed theories could wait. Tomorrow, he'd dig deeper. Leaving the study behind, Gabriel headed to his bedroom. The the penthouse ominously silent. Sleep wouldn't come easily, but he needed at least a few hours to function. His last thought before drifting into a fitful slumber was that everything in his life, his carefully structured empire, was tiptoeing on a razor's edge, and one misstep, one secret unveiled, might send it all tumbling down, taking innocence like Eva and Amelia with it. Morning arrived with a sluggish drape of clouds, hinting at possible rain over the city. Gabriel Stanton's alarm buzzed sharply at 6 a.m., tearing him from a restless sleep. He blinked at the ceiling, heart pounding as he recalled scraps of anxiety-laden dreams. Something about college hallways, blurred faces from that old photo, and an unseen figure whispering threats in the dark. He lay still for a moment, letting his pulse settle, before sitting up and grabbing his phone off the bedside table. No new texts from the unknown number, a small mercy. He flipped through the usual updates, emails about today's meetings, a note from Price about potential lead progress, and a short message from Dana, still investigating links to your college acquaintances. Will update ASAP. Gabriel exhaled, bracing himself. Another day of chasing shadows. Yet he refused to appear anything less than confident at his office. Stepping into a hot shower, he let the water wash away the lingering weight of bad dreams. He repeated a silent mantra. He was Gabriel Stanton, CEO of one of the most influential tech firms in the region. He would solve this. At exactly 7:15, Eva Green found herself in a very different morning routine. She was coaxing a reluctant Amelia to finish breakfast, scrambled eggs on a chipped plate, before they hurried off to school and work. "Mama, I'm not hungry," Amelia protested softly, pushing a fork through the eggs. Eva offered an encouraging smile. "Just a few bites, sweetheart. You need your energy for the school day." Weariness tugged at Ava's own posture. She'd stayed up too late, mind racing with worries, not only about the secrets of her past, but about the swirl of trouble that might now surround Gabriel. She'd caught a news snippet the previous night about Stanton Innovations' data breach. A nagging voice insisted it wasn't her business, but part of her couldn't help feeling concerned. Amelia wrinkled her nose but took a small bite. "Are you going to the community center again after work?" "Not today," Eva answered, ruffling her daughter's hair. "I have to head to the temp agency for a new assignment, but Mrs. Karen will pick you up from school for a play date with Lily." At the mention of her friend Lily, Amelia brightened. "Okay." She munched another forkful. Eva turned off the small TV in the corner of the living room, which had been quietly broadcasting the morning headlines. She always checked for mention of local safety issues. Memories of her past made her extra cautious. But nothing new blared except the usual traffic jams. Ready to leave, Eva scooped up their bags and ushered Amelia outside. They walked hand in hand down the apartment's worn staircase. As they stepped onto the sidewalk, Eva suddenly caught the flicker of a figure across the street, a man leaning against a parked car, wearing dark sunglasses. She paused, heart skipping. The man seemed to glance their way, then shifted position as if trying not to appear obvious. A cold wave of dread rippled through her. Was she imagining things, or had she seen that silhouette before? But Amelia tugged on her arm, humming a little tune. "Mommy, come on, we'll be late," the girl urged, oblivious to Ava's sudden anxiety. Ava forced a smile. "Yes, of course." They continued down the street, and when she chanced to look back, the man was no longer there. Perhaps he moved on, or perhaps she'd let paranoia get the best of her. Eva tried to quell the creeping worry. Jesse's name had not crossed her path in years. Surely his old associates wouldn't suddenly be lurking around. Still, the encounter left her unsettled, and she found herself walking faster, as though fleeing a ghost that might be chasing them. Meanwhile, Gabriel arrived at Stanton Innovations just after 8 a.m. The receptionist greeted him with a nervous smile. News of the data breach had clearly rattled the entire staff. But Gabriel strode past, projecting the usual air of certainty. He needed to reassure everyone that the company would stand unshaken, despite the invisible threats nipping at his heels. Price was waiting by Gabriel's office, cup of coffee in hand. "Morning. Hope you got more sleep than I did." "Likewise," Gabriel replied, stepping inside. He glanced at the desk, half expecting another cryptic package. Nothing. "Any developments?" Price set the coffee down. Dana confirmed a partial ID on another face in that photo. Someone named Derek Sanders. Ring a bell? Gabriel thought for a moment. Maybe. The name's vaguely familiar? Economics major, or was he in business admin? It's been so long. Price nodded. He studied finance, apparently. We found a LinkedIn profile. He's now an independent consultant overseas. Dana's checking if he's traveled back to the country recently. Running a hand through his hair, Gabriel sank into his chair. So Carter, Allison, Derek, they were acquaintances at best, unless one of them secretly despised me. This is baffling. A grim chuckle escaped Price. College rivalries can fester in some people's minds, but I agree it's odd. We're still digging. Gabriel's phone chimed with a new email, Burke and Lyndon's final reminder that he had a meeting with them soon. He muttered a curse under his breath. "I'll have to head over to the law firm shortly. Keep me informed, and if you find any sign that these classmates or someone else is orchestrating this, let me know." Of course. Price watched Gabriel gather a few documents. Then, in a softer tone, "You all right, really? You look unsettled." Gabriel paused, gripping his briefcase. "I'm fine. I just hate not knowing who's toying with my life." With that, he left Price behind and made his way toward the elevator, mind already racing through potential defenses for any legal issues. Burke and Lyndon's high-rise offices occupied a sleek tower across town, all mirrored glass and marble interiors. Gabriel's arrival was marked by brisk greetings from well-dressed associates who recognized him immediately. Within minutes, he was ushered into a private conference room with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city. Claire Alden, a seasoned attorney with a reputation for cutting straight to the heart of matters, greeted him. "Mr. Stanton, thanks for coming on such short notice." Gabriel inclined his head. "I assume we're discussing the potential fallout of the data breach." She gestured for him to sit, and a junior associate poured bottled water into crystal glasses. "Yes, and more specifically, any past legal settlements or confidentiality agreements that might resurface. We need to anticipate if the hacker obtained such files and how best to mitigate damage." He sipped water, mind flicking to that hush money scandal from years ago. "I understand. There's one notable agreement from a former employee who threatened to leak personal details about me. That's probably in the crosshairs." Claire studied him. "Were those details factual?" A beat of silence. Gabriel chose his words carefully. "They twisted half-truths, implying shady offshore accounts that never existed. We settled out of court to avoid a circus in the media." She nodded, tapping a pen against a yellow legal pad. "The settlement is watertight, but if the documents or claims behind it are leaked, the media might latch on. Whether or not they're true doesn't matter if the public thinks they smell blood." Gabriel exhaled. "So we brace for a PR storm if that file goes public." "Precisely, and that's just one aspect. Our concern is that whoever orchestrated the hack may be holding on to any piece of your personal history to use as leverage. You need to be prepared for, well, almost anything." A sense of weary resignation weighed on him. He'd spent years building a fortress around his professional image. Now, a single breach threatened to unravel it. "Thank you for the warning. I'll cooperate with all necessary measures." The meeting stretched over an hour, discussing possible contingency plans, press releases, legal counters, crisis communication strategies. By the end, Gabriel felt simultaneously more informed and more exhausted. Meanwhile, Eva sat in a crowded waiting area of the temp agency, scanning her phone for job postings she might have missed. A thin folder of her resume and references lay on her lap. She wore a simple blouse and skirt, her posture poised despite the environment's hum of low conversation. When her name was called, she stepped into a small cubicle partition. A harried woman named Paula greeted her with a perfunctory handshake. "Eva, right? Have a seat." Paula shuffled through some papers. "We might have something for you, a receptionist slot at a local HVC company. It's only part-time, but it pays slightly above minimum wage. Interested?" Eva fought a sigh. She'd hoped for a more stable position, especially with the idea of saving up for a better home for Amelia. Still, she nodded. "Yes, please. I'm willing to consider it." Paula scribbled a note. "You'll need to interview tomorrow. Is that okay?" "That's fine, thank you." Clutching the details, Eva left the agency, stepping into a light drizzle that had begun to fall. She popped open a small umbrella, her thoughts returning to the eerie feeling she'd had this morning, spotting that man near her apartment. Was it just paranoia? She glanced around, seeing only busy pedestrians scurrying through the rain. The phone in her purse buzzed. She paused under an awning and checked the screen, heart fluttering to see Gabriel's name. Actually, it was his office number, Mr. Stanton's office calling. For a second, she considered ignoring it, fearful that any contact could complicate her life. But curiosity and a hint of concern won out. She answered hesitantly, "Hello?" A crisp voice responded. "Ms. Green, this is Janet, Mr. Stanton's assistant. Apologies for the intrusion. Mr. Stanton wanted me to confirm your mailing address. He'd like to send you some information about internship programs and community outreach." Eva's brow furrowed. She pressed back against the wall to avoid jostling passers-by. "Oh, sure. That's kind of him." She recited her address. "Is everything okay?" Janet hesitated before responding carefully. "Everything is fine. Mr. Stanton just asked me to follow up. Expect a small packet in the next day or two." "Thank you," Eva managed. The call ended, leaving her breathless with an odd mix of gratitude and apprehension. She pictured Gabriel in his sleek office, or maybe on the phone, instructing someone to send her a supportive outreach packet. The man had a lot on his plate. Why did he still think of them? She tucked the phone away, stepping back into the drizzle. Perhaps the opportunity could be a blessing for Amelia when she was older, or maybe even for Eva herself. A chance to break free from the cycle of temp jobs. But she also couldn't ignore the whisper of dread that told her to tread carefully. Back at Stanton Innovations, Gabriel walked into Dana Lou's office for an update. A handful of monitors displayed lines of code, system logs, and social media scans. Dana gestured him over. "We've tracked some signals from a private email domain referencing your name. Could be the same culprit who tried the breach," she explained. "But it's routing through multiple servers. Still no clear ID." Gabriel skimmed the data. "So no breakthroughs?" "Not yet. But I did confirm that Carter Withers is currently in Spain. He hasn't left there in months. And Allison Boyd works in Chicago. No travel records placing her here. Derek Sanders. Still checking." He nodded, tension gnawing at him. "At least we can rule out Carter and Allison as physically delivering that package." Dana nodded. Then her phone buzzed. She glanced at it, brow furrowing. "Huh? Interesting timing. Derek Sanders' name just popped on a flight manifest. He's arriving in the city tomorrow." A chill rippled through Gabriel. "That's convenient. Could he be our unknown, or is it just coincidence?" Dana shrugged. "Hard to say. We'll keep tabs." Gabriel inhaled slowly, formulating his next moves. If Derek Sanders, a barely remembered college acquaintance, was landing here amid these threats, it couldn't be random. Was Derek the one behind the phone calls, the photo, the infiltration? Or might he simply hold a piece of the truth? Before he could voice another question, his own phone buzzed. A text from Price. "I have a lead. Come to my office ASAP." He met Dana's eyes. "Looks like we might be getting somewhere. Keep me posted." Striding out, he felt a surge of grim determination. He'd spent too many days recoiling from shadows. It was time to confront this head-on, even if it meant reopening chapters of his past that he'd long hoped to forget. Gabriel hastened through the glass-walled corridors of Stanton Innovations, pulse picking up as he neared Colin Price's office. The CFO's cryptic message, "I have a lead," buzzed in his mind, providing a fleeting spark of hope that this mystery might soon unravel. He found Price at his desk, flanked by two monitors showing blurred chat windows and flight manifests. The CFO motioned for Gabriel to close the door. "What is it?" Gabriel asked, voice low and taut. Price swiveled one monitor around. "We got hold of some travel records, plus a snippet from an online forum. Derek Sanders, your old college classmate, posted anonymously about meeting a long-lost contact in the city, and the timing lines up with that flight Dana mentioned." Gabriel's brow furrowed. "So Derek is openly hinting he's coming to see someone from his college days?" "Seems like it." Price clicked another tab, revealing a screenshot. He wrote this in a niche finance forum, returning to settle old debts and maybe collect on promises. It's vague, but the words debts and promises stand out, especially given our situation. Gabriel's gut twisted. Could he be the one sending the photos and threats? Price tapped a finger on the desk. Possibly, or he's just a piece of the puzzle. The timing is too perfect to ignore. Gabriel considered it. Derek Sanders had been a finance major, known for dabbling in risky schemes even back in college. Gabriel only remembered him in passing, parties, group projects, some minor drama. But nothing so dire as to spark blackmail years later, unless Gabriel had overlooked something. "Do we have any evidence that Derek's behind the hack?" he asked. Price shook his head. "Not concrete. The IP addresses for the breach were traced overseas. Derek's been traveling off and on in Europe for consulting gigs. There's room for overlap, but it's all circumstantial." Gabriel sank into a chair, mind churning. "What's our next move?" "Dana suggests we keep tabs on Derek once he arrives. See if he tries contacting you. If he does, we'll know soon enough. In the meantime, we maintain our security lockdown." Price paused, expression tightening. "And we handle any personal matters that could be ammo against you. That hush money agreement, old rumors, anything Derek might exploit." Gabriel exhaled sharply. "I've been digging through my files. There's nothing else. But I'll talk to our lawyers again, in case they have any suggestions." Price drummed his fingers. "There's one more thing. We found a small piece of data in the infiltration logs referencing Green. Greene. A chill flickered across Gabriel's skin. "Wait, Green?" "Yes." Price's eyes narrowed. "We can't tell if it's a surname or code. We just know that the hacker searched for Stanton and Green in the HR and personal files. Ring any bells?" Uncertainty mingled with alarm. Gabriel thought of Eva Green, and a sudden question thundered in his mind. Could there be a link between her and this Derek Sanders scenario? I know someone named Green, but it's unrelated. Possibly a coincidence." Price shrugged. "Could be. But if the hackers specifically searched for that word, it means they suspect a connection between you and this Green." Gabriel fought to keep a steady expression. "All right. Let's assume for now it's just a common last name. Keep investigating." "Will do." With that, Price closed the files. Gabriel felt his heart thud. He was in a precarious position, trying to protect Eva and Amelia from unwanted attention while also facing the reality that the name Green had cropped up in the breach. If someone dug deeper, Eva's name might surface, and if that happened, Amelia's mistaken claim could morph into ugly rumors. He left Price's office and returned to his own, tension knotting his shoulders. The moment he closed the door, he picked up his phone, scrolling to Eva's number. He paused, torn about whether to warn her. He'd already sent a courtesy packet via Janet about internship programs and outreach. Would it frighten her if he suddenly brought up the notion that someone was sniffing around the name Green? With a frustrated sigh, he placed the phone down. He couldn't risk alarming her without proof of direct danger, and he suspected Eva would do everything in her power to stay off any radar. Across town, Eva was doing her best to keep life normal, though her nerves remained taut. She picked up Amelia from school, the sky still threatening rain. They strolled back toward the apartment, chatting about the little girl's day. Halfway there, Ava's phone buzzed. The ID read, "Private." Her heart rate spiked. Could this be Gabriel, or something else entirely? She hesitated before answering. "Hello?" A burst of static, then a low male voice. "Hello, Ava." Instantly, the bottom dropped out of her stomach. She recognized that voice's cold undertone. "Who is this?" she managed, though she already knew. "You remember me?" the voice said, an edge of dark amusement. "I told you I'd find you eventually." Ava's grip on Amelia's hand tightened. Her daughter glanced up, noticing her mother's pale face. "I told you, stay away from me," Ava whispered, panic coiling in her throat. A harsh chuckle. "You disappeared well, Ava, but not forever. Word on the street is you're friendly with some big-shot CEO now." Her chest constricted. There's nothing. You're mistaken." "Don't lie to me," the caller snapped. "You think hooking up with Stanton will protect you? It won't. If you want to keep that little girl of yours safe, you'll do as I say." Eva's mind whirled in terror. She could see Amelia looking more and more concerned. Forcing her voice steady, she said, "What do you want?" Silence stretched ominously. Then, "Meet me. Tomorrow night. That abandoned service station on Pineview Road. 9 o'clock. "You're insane," Eva choked out. I'm not doing that. You'll hurt me." "Then watch your back," he hissed. "And your daughter's. I know where you live. I know where she goes to school. Don't make me prove it." The call ended abruptly, leaving Eva trembling. Amelia tugged at her sleeve. "Mommy?" she asked, eyes filled with alarm. Eva swallowed back a surge of panic. She forced a wavering smile. "It's all right, honey. Just a wrong number." She resumed walking, her mind spinning in 1,000 directions. So it had finally happened. Jesse's old associates, or maybe Jesse himself, had resurfaced. And they knew about Gabriel Stanton, twisting that morning in the park into some sinister leverage. Eva felt cornered. She'd spent years avoiding this exact scenario, her past creeping out, threatening her daughter. Instinctively she thought of Gabriel, but he was a public figure, already embroiled in some crisis of his own. Could she dare involve him in this? Amelia kept glancing up with worry. Eva mustered a reassuring tone, telling silly jokes until they reached the apartment, hoping her daughter wouldn't see the storm of fear behind her eyes. Back at Stanton Innovations, Gabriel's day dragged on in a haze of tense meetings and half-answered questions. By late afternoon, his phone chimed with a text from Dana. "Just found a clue. Derek Sanders was in contact with an ex-classmate who has the last name Green. I'm pulling the details now." Gabriel stared, adrenaline spiking. Green. If that connection existed, it could mean everything. Could Derek be related to Eva somehow? Or was it someone else entirely? He typed back, "Let me know ASAP." Minutes later, Dana replied with a single line, "Name, Roland Green. Checking if he's linked to your friend Eva." Gabriel clenched his jaw. So Roland Green, an old acquaintance, might be collaborating with Derek? But how did this tie into Eva, if at all? He had to find out. He almost called Eva right then, but hesitated. He didn't want to spark confusion or expose her to potential threats if it turned out to be a dead end. Instead, he shot an email to his personal investigator, someone he occasionally hired for discreet inquiries. He outlined the limited details he had. Roland Green, possible link to Derek Sanders, attempts to blackmail or threaten him. He added a final note. Check if Roland Green has any relatives in the city. Need answers ASAP. Late in the evening, the rain began in earnest, pattering against rooftops and windows. Ava sat at her small kitchen table, staring at a piece of paper where she'd scribbled the instructions from the ominous phone call. Service station, Pineview Road, 9 p.m. Thunder rolled in the distance. Outside, the street lamp glistened on puddles forming by the curb. Amelia was asleep in the next room, blissfully unaware of the danger. Her mind spun with options. Going to that meeting was suicidal. She'd be alone, at the mercy of someone who'd already threatened her and her child. Yet refusing might provoke them further. Could she go to the police? That thought died quickly. She had no proof of who called. And if Jesse was involved, the last time she'd sought police help long ago, it ended nowhere. She pictured Gabriel's face, calm, strong, someone who might actually help. But a fierce voice inside warned her that this would be inviting him into a war zone. She couldn't risk him or Amelia's safety by tangling him up in her mess. And what if the caller already suspected a relationship between her and Gabriel? It could endanger him more. Trembling, she rubbed her temples. No matter what, she had to protect Amelia. If she did nothing, these people could come closer. If she showed up, at least she might negotiate or bargain for them to leave her daughter alone. Finally, she scribbled a plan on a separate notepad. Contact a friend from out of town. Arrange for Amelia to stay over if things went awry. She'd make sure her daughter was safe, then face whoever threatened them. Alone. She felt nauseated but steeled herself. She'd spent too long running from the ghosts of Jesse's underworld connections. Now they were forcing her hand. If a storm loomed, she'd face it to protect Amelia, no matter the personal cost. That same night, after a long session with the corporate lawyers discussing media contingency plans, Gabriel retired to his penthouse. The patter of rain against the floor-to-ceiling windows created a lonely soundtrack. He set down his briefcase, loosening his tie, wondering if Derek's arrival tomorrow would finally trigger a face-to-face confrontation. Perhaps he should arrange a private meeting with Derek, end this cat-and-mouse game. His phone buzzed with a message from his investigator. Roland Green was last seen overseas. No record of a local relative named Ava Green, but Roland has a half-sister, name unknown, living in the state. More soon. Gabriel's breath caught. A half-sister? Living in the same state as Ava? It could be coincidence, but every instinct told him otherwise. Ava Green might well be Roland's half-sister, though apparently she never mentioned it. Maybe they were estranged. If that was true, it might explain why the hackers searched for Green. A wave of alarm flooded him. Could Ava be drawn into this because of her possible link to Roland? Did the blackmailer assume Gabriel was hiding something about a secret family or relationship with Ava? He paced by the window, watching rain streak down the glass. 1,000 scenarios churned through his mind. He recalled Ava's quiet demeanor, the way fear sometimes flickered in her eyes, as though haunted by her own secrets. If she truly was Roland Green's half-sister, she might be oblivious to Derek Sanders's schemes. Or perhaps she knew something. Gabriel clenched his fists, hating how powerless he felt. Whatever the truth, he wanted to warn her, but again, he lacked proof, and he dreaded the idea of thrusting a single mother into further turmoil. At length, he settled at his desk and composed a cautious text. Ava, hope you're well. Just checking in. Wanted to see if the outreach info arrived yet. Let me know if you have any questions or concerns. G. He hovered over send, debating if it would alarm her. Then he pressed it anyway, heart thudding. If she replied calmly, he'd know she was safe. If not, well, he might have no choice but to reveal more of what he suspected. He set the phone aside, the rain continuing its rhythmic patter against the glass. Tomorrow might bring Derek's arrival and new revelations, perhaps enough to finally unmask the ghost tugging at Gabriel's past. But until then, all he could do was wait, suspended in a tense equilibrium between secrets that refused to stay buried and a future that felt disturbingly uncertain. Gabriel Stanton barely slept. The glow of the city's skyline merged with the flicker of his penthouse lights, which he'd left on in the living room. He woke at dawn to find his phone still void of a reply from Ava. Unease crawled through him. Perhaps she was busy, or maybe she sensed something was wrong. Determined not to be paralyzed by half-answers, he pushed through his morning routine. He dressed in a charcoal suit, knotting his tie with quick, decisive motions. A part of him wanted to call Eva outright, but the mounting schedule of the day loomed. Derek Sanders was supposed to land mid-morning, and Gabriel had planned to keep his movements discreetly monitored. By 8 a.m., Gabriel was in the back seat of a Stanton Innovations vehicle, the city rushing by in a blur of steel and glass. He toggled through reports on his tablet, eyes skimming the lines for anything new about Derek, Roland, or the infiltration. Still, nothing concrete. His driver let him out at a side entrance of the office tower, a small measure to avoid press or curiosity seekers. Inside, he nodded at the security team, then headed upstairs, bracing himself for another day of tension. Miles away, Eva Green was fighting her own battle with the morning. She had spent half the night awake, trembling over the phone call that summoned her to the abandoned service station on Pineview Road. When she finally slept, it was shallow, riddled with nightmares about strangers following her and a child's cry echoing in the dark. By the time she rose, her decision was made. She couldn't let them harm Amelia. That meant facing whoever threatened her. Her friend Lydia, a quiet acquaintance from church, had agreed to watch Amelia overnight if necessary. Eva hated lying about why, but desperation forced her hand. She helped Amelia get ready for school with a forced smile. "You'll go to Lydia's after class, okay? Just for a little sleepover." Amelia's face lit up with mild excitement, an adventure she didn't quite understand. "Will you be there too?" Eva's throat tightened. "I'll come pick you up tomorrow, sweetie. I have to work late." A flicker of disappointment crossed the girl's eyes, but she nodded. Eva planted a kiss on her forehead, then led her outside. She spotted no strange figures on the sidewalk this time, but the memory of that man in sunglasses lingered, along with the cryptic phone call. Dropping Amelia at school, she forced herself to walk away without looking back too often, though her heart felt like it was cracking in two. If anything happened that night, at least Amelia would be safe. That knowledge kept Eva moving, despite the dread pulsing through her veins. At Stanton Innovations, Gabriel stepped into Dana Liu's domain. The cybersecurity head had dark circles under her eyes, evidence of sleepless nights. A couple of tech specialists tapped away at workstations, lines of code rolling across multiple screens. Dana beckoned Gabriel over to a desk where a laptop displayed a flight tracking interface. "Derek Sanders' plane touched down half an hour ago," she said quietly. "We have a contact at the airport who confirmed he went through arrivals. Then he disappeared. No checked luggage, so he left quickly." Gabriel's pulse kicked. "Any chance he's headed here?" Dana shook her head. "Impossible to know. We're trying to see if he's booked a hotel. Nothing so far. He's likely using cash and staying off-grid." "And you're certain he was part of that old group from the photo?" "Yes. We matched his face and identified him in a campus yearbook. He was in a finance club with Carter Withers." Gabriel exhaled through clenched teeth. "All right, keep your ears open. If he tries contacting me—" Dana's phone buzzed. She glanced at it, eyes widening. "Speak of the devil. A text just reached our server, referencing your name and using a known anonymizing service." She tapped her screen, and the text popped up in a plain font. "Hello, Gabriel. Surprised to see me in town? Let's meet. DS." A rush of adrenaline coursed through Gabriel. "He wants to meet. Fine. Let's do it on my terms." Dana studied him warily. "We can't be sure he's alone, or if he's dangerous." "I'm not playing games anymore," Gabriel said, determination slicing through his frustration. "I'll accept, in a public place perhaps, and we'll have eyes on it." "All right." Dana nodded. "Tell me where to set up." Gabriel considered a discreet cafe near downtown, quiet enough for a private conversation but still public enough to discourage overt threats. He relayed the plan, and Dana started drafting the reply to Derek, sending it through an anonymized channel. Gabriel's jaw set in grim resolve. By the end of the day, he'd face Derek Sanders, unmask the reason behind these cryptic threats, and maybe, just maybe, put an end to this nightmare. Meanwhile, Eva struggled to keep herself composed at the new part-time receptionist job she'd just landed, an HVAC company's modest office. She answered phones, filed paperwork, and forced a polite smile for arriving customers. Internally, her thoughts spun endlessly around the looming night. The hours dragged. At lunch break, she retreated to a small kitchenette, nibbling half-heartedly on a sandwich. Her phone chimed. For a heartbeat, she feared it was another menacing call. But relief came when she saw Gabriel's message from the previous evening. "Ava, hope you're well. Just checking in. Wanted to see if the outreach info arrived yet. Let me know if you have any questions or concerns. G." Her eyes misted with unexpected gratitude. Even in the midst of whatever chaos he might be dealing with, he remembered her. Part of her longed to pour out her troubles, but she couldn't drag him into this. Quietly, she typed a reply. "Hi, Mr. Stanton. Yes, the packet arrived. Thank you. It seems like a great opportunity. I'm grateful for your thoughtfulness. Take care." She hesitated, wondering if she should add something more personal, some subtle hint that her life was in danger. But no, she couldn't. Instead, she left the message plain and sent it. Gabriel was in the middle of prepping for his meeting with Derek when Eva's reply arrived. Though his heart pounded with the tension of the day, he allowed himself a moment to smile at her simple gratitude. Despite everything, a pocket of warmth touched him. He typed back, brief but sincere, "I'm glad it was helpful. If you ever need help or advice, don't hesitate to reach out." Hitting send, he felt a pang of guilt. He was advising her to lean on him, yet he was the one who might unwittingly bring danger her way if someone thought she was part of his secrets. However, he couldn't bring himself to withdraw. Something about her quiet courage and Amelia's bright innocence compelled him to keep that door open. Late afternoon rolled around, and Derek Sanders finally responded with a meeting location, a small low-key cafe by the old riverfront, away from the main business district. The kind of place that wouldn't attract much attention. Gabriel instructed Dana to send a final confirmation, setting the meeting for 6 p.m. He planned to arrive early with discreet security in place. It wouldn't be an ambush. He wanted answers, not violence, but he needed to protect himself. His thoughts strayed to the name Green again, that curious overlap with Eva's last name. Was Derek planning to force some narrative about Gabriel fathering a hidden child or forging illegal ties? The possibilities grated on his nerves. By 5:30, with the city's skies tinged a dull gray from lingering clouds, Gabriel slipped out of his office, escorted by 2 off-duty security professionals he trusted. They blended in like regular colleagues as they headed toward the designated cafe in an unmarked sedan. At precisely 6 p.m., Gabriel stepped into the cafe's dim interior. Worn wooden floors, a chalkboard menu, and a scattering of small tables greeted him. The sweet aroma of baked goods mingled with the faint mustiness of an old building by the river. He'd arrived first, as planned. One of his guards sat at a table near the entrance, pretending to read a newspaper. Another lingered outside. Gabriel chose a seat near the back corner, where a lamp threw a warm glow across the tabletop. Time slowed. He checked his watch. 6:05, 6:10. Was Derek late, or was this a trap? Each time the door opened, Gabriel glanced up, heart thumping. But it was always a random patron, an elderly couple, a young man buying a latte. Finally, at 6:17, a figure in a hooded jacket pushed inside, scanning the interior. The man lowered his hood, revealing dark hair and a thin face that Gabriel vaguely recognized from old college days. Derek Sanders. Gabriel stood, giving a curt nod. Derek met his gaze, lips twitching in what might have been a smirk or nervous tick. He approached the table slowly, and Gabriel motioned for him to sit. They stared at each other across the small round tabletop. For a moment, neither spoke. Then Gabriel broke the tension, voice cold. "You've been busy." Derek gave a soft laugh, hands clasped on the table. "You could say that. Surprised you were so eager to meet." "I'm tired of the threats," Gabriel stated flatly. "If you have a grudge, air it. If you want money, name your price. But stop playing games." An odd glint shone in Derek's eyes. "Money's nice, sure, but it's not just about that." He leaned forward. "Don't you remember what happened at Ridgemont? The promises made, the betrayals? You walked away with everything, leaving some of us behind." Gabriel's brow knotted. "Betrayals? I left after graduation. You and I were barely friends." "Exactly," Derek hissed, bitterness pouring out. "You waltzed into your fancy future, got the big company, the fame. Others, well, we weren't so lucky. Some ended up in debt or worse, and you never looked back." Anger flared in Gabriel's chest. "I'm not responsible for everyone's choices." Derek smirked. "No, but you profited from them. Remember Roland Green's startup plan, the one you dismissed and then launched your own version with different investors?" A flicker of memory surfaced. Roland Green pitching some half-formed tech idea that Gabriel later refined. But Roland vanished overseas before anything concrete solidified. "That was years ago," Gabriel said quietly. "He wasn't serious. I developed it with my own resources." Derek's voice rose. Roland saw it differently. He felt robbed, and he wasn't the only one. Carter, Allison, we all had bones to pick. But I'm the one who took it further, you see, because Roland got into trouble. The mention of Roland's trouble made Gabriel's stomach tighten. What kind of trouble? Derek laughed bitterly. The kind that leads to shady dealings. He once boasted that his half-sister could help him hide if things went south. But she ran from him, too. Gabriel's pulse hammered. "Half-sister, Eva," he forced calm. "So you're blackmailing me because of a grudge from a decade ago?" A flash of anger contorted Derek's face. "It's not just a grudge. Roland ended up owing dangerous people. He blamed you for starting your empire on the bones of his idea. I promised him I'd get back what he was owed, even if I had to expose your secrets." Gabriel inhaled, mind racing. "So you rummaged through my data, hoping to find, I don't know, proof I stole something from Roland?" Derek tapped the table with a finger. "I didn't just rummage. I found enough to smear your image if I go public. Offshore accounts? Old hush money deals? The press would gobble it up. Plus, there's the angle about you and Green's sister. Maybe I spin it as you seducing her to keep her silent." Fury and dread coiled together in Gabriel's chest. "That's a lie," he grated out. "She's not part of this." A cruel smile curved Derek's lips. "Really? Because rumor says you're pretty cozy with her. Some little girl calling you daddy in the park. Isn't that juicy tabloid fodder?" Gabriel clenched his jaw. So the rumor had reached Derek's ears, meaning Eva and Amelia were at risk of being dragged into a scandal. Rage flickered behind his eyes, but he kept his voice level. "If you think blackmailing me will get Roland's debt paid, you're mistaken. I'm not caving to your threats." Derek shrugged. "Then I release the files. I'll send every sensational story to the press, spin the child angle, and watch your kingdom burn." A tense silence descended, broken only by the cafe's background hum. Gabriel caught a glimpse of his guard near the entrance, discreetly on alert. He inhaled, forcing composure. "What's your demand?" Derek leaned back, crossing his arms. $5 million. That's a fraction of what you've amassed. Pay it, and I vanish. Roland gets his share, we settle the grudge, and you keep your heroic CEO image. A cascade of thoughts swarmed Gabriel's mind. He could pay, but that wouldn't guarantee Derek would stay silent. Extortion rarely ended cleanly. On the other hand, letting Derek drag Eva and Amelia into a headline-grabbing smear campaign was unthinkable. At last, he spoke quietly. "I'll consider it, but I need proof you'll destroy whatever files you stole. No duplicates, no backup servers." Derek lifted one eyebrow, clearly pleased at Gabriel's willingness to negotiate. "Done. I'll even show you a video of me wiping everything. But we do this soon, or I start leaking tidbits as a warning shot." Gabriel's insides churned. He forced a curt nod. "I'll be in touch within 48 hours. Where can I reach you?" Smirking, Derek slid a slip of paper across the table. An email address. "My phone is disposable. Use that email or I'll contact you. Don't be late." Then, without another word, Derek stood and strolled out, leaving Gabriel rigid in his seat. The guard near the door glanced at Gabriel, who gave a subtle shake of his head. No need to detain Derek now. This was a delicate dance. His heart pounded as he replayed Derek's threats. $5 million to bury a decade-old grudge, and, more importantly, to keep Eva and Amelia out of a twisted blackmail narrative. Could he trust Derek at all? Doubtful. But the alternative was public exposure, damaging headlines, and a possible cascade of harm to people he wanted to protect. He left a few bills on the table for his coffee, untouched, and walked out. Rain had begun sprinkling again, each drop feeling like a pinprick on his tense shoulders. The guard followed at a distance, ensuring Derek didn't circle back. Gabriel slipped into the waiting sedan, leaning back against the seat, mind roiling. He'd spent years building Stanton Innovations into a juggernaut and carefully maintaining a life free of major scandal. Now, in a matter of days, his entire world felt precariously balanced on Derek Sanders' whims. And through it all, a single name, Green, echoed like a warning. Roland's half-sister, presumably Eva, had also run from him. For her own reasons, no doubt. If Derek knew Eva's location, he might exploit her next. Gabriel couldn't let that happen. As the car pulled away from the cafe, he resolved to find Eva immediately. Whether she knew about Roland or not, she deserved a warning that Derek had her in his crosshairs. Even if it meant shattering the fragile boundary she'd drawn between her life and his, he refused to let her remain an unwitting target. In his chest, anxiety and protectiveness warred. He recalled the look of fear that once lingered in Eva's gaze. She already carried burdens from her past. The last thing he wanted was to compound her troubles. But if she was Roland's half-sister, there might be more at stake than she'd ever told him. Gabriel pulled out his phone, dialed his driver to adjust routes. He needed to see Eva face to face before Derek made the next move. If necessary, he'd shield her and Amelia from this storm, whether it cost him $5 million or the pristine reputation he'd fought so hard to protect. Eva Green's hands shook as she slid into the back seat of a borrowed car, the night sky a blanket of dark clouds overhead. She'd spent the afternoon quietly making arrangements. Amelia was safe with Lydia, having a sleepover that Eva prayed would shield her daughter from any fallout. Now, at nearly 8:30, Eva was en route to the abandoned service station on Pineview Road, destination of the ominous phone call she'd received. She had never felt so terrified. Her mind looped through worst-case scenarios. A trap, an ambush, a vengeful figure from her past. But she couldn't just do nothing. The threat hung over Amelia like a noose. If facing these people, maybe Jesse himself, meant keeping her child free from harm, Eva would endure it. Rain drummed against the car roof as she neared the outskirts of the city. The driver, an older acquaintance from the community center who agreed to drop her off, gave her a concerned look in the rearview mirror. "You sure about this, Eva? Maybe I should wait." Eva forced a tight-lipped smile. "Thank you, but no. It's safer if you go. I'll figure out a way home." The man nodded reluctantly. Moments later, he turned onto the deserted Pineview Road. Crumbling asphalt led to the derelict service station, a faint glow of a single street lamp illuminating rusted fuel pumps and shattered windows. The place looked like a scene from a nightmare. "Please, be careful," the driver murmured as Ava stepped out. She clutched her hood around her face, shielding herself from the rain's onslaught, and waved him off. The car disappeared into the darkness, leaving her alone with the hiss of rainfall and the ominous silhouette of the abandoned station. Ava swallowed hard, heart hammering against her ribs. She ventured forward, stepping through puddles that reflected the skeletal remains of the overhead canopy. Broken glass crunched underfoot. A single flickering fluorescent bulb inside the station provided weak illumination, casting ghostly shadows across the graffiti-strewn walls. "Hello?" she called, voice echoing in the emptiness. A figure stirred in the corner, where an old mechanic's bay jutted out behind the station's main office. He stepped forward, face hidden beneath a hood. "You came," he said in a low, mocking tone. Eva's pulse thundered. "I'm here. Now leave my daughter out of this." He let out a derisive laugh. "Oh, you're in no position to make demands, Ava. Where's the big-shot CEO you're so cozy with? Thought maybe you'd bring him along." Her stomach twisted. "He has nothing to do with this. If you're after me, or after money, I don't have it." The man took another step, and the flickering light revealed his face enough for Eva to recognize him, not Jesse, but one of Jesse's old associates, Manny. He was the enforcer who'd once threatened her before she fled. His gaze flicked behind her, scanning the darkness as if expecting another arrival. "Well, well, looks like you came alone." Eva clenched her fists. "Just tell me what you want," Manny sneered. "Jesse's still overseas, but he kept track of you. Heard rumors you latched onto a wealthy protector, Gabriel Stanton. So let's cut to the chase. You're going to get Stanton to wire us 200 grand. If you don't, accidents happen, maybe involving your little girl." Her breath caught. "I won't do that. I barely know the man. He's not my protector. He has no reason to pay." Manny shrugged casually. "Figure it out or your daughter pays the price. You have 48 hours. Then we'll be in touch." Ava's voice trembled with suppressed fury. "You can't threaten a child." Lightning flashed outside and Manny whirled, hearing something behind him. Footsteps. A second figure materialized from the station's shadowy office area. For a split second, Eva's heart lurched, afraid it might be another enforcer. But as the figure stepped into the flickering light, she recognized the tall frame, the expensive overcoat. Gabriel Stanton. Eva's lungs seized. "Gabriel? What? How are you here?" He paused, rainwater drenching his hair, eyes sharp as they flicked from Eva to Manny. "I could ask you the same," he said grimly, though his tone held a note of concern. "I searched everywhere when I couldn't reach you. I had my security track your phone's last location." Manny's face contorted with rage. "So the hero arrives. Suppose you're here to make a deal, big shot?" Gabriel didn't flinch. He'd brought a single guard, who hovered by the station's entrance, scanning for threats. "I'm here to protect Eva. You want money?" He shot Manny a glare. "You'll get nothing by threatening her child." "Money? That's just the start," Manny spat. "Jesse wants payback, and you're a convenient target, so either cough up or—" He never finished. A flicker of movement came from outside, a second car pulling up. Manny's eyes darted that way, nerves on edge. "Did you bring more people?" Gabriel exchanged a glance with his guard, who shook his head. "No." Tires screeched, and a figure emerged from the rain, stepping out of a dark sedan. Eva's heart lurched again. Derek Sanders. He'd been watching Manny's meeting from afar, possibly tracking Eva's involvement with Gabriel. The swirl of events collided in that one stormy night. Derek approached, holding an umbrella, a twisted smirk on his face. "Well, well, seems we've got quite the gathering. Manny, is it? You messing with Stanton's new friend? Eva recoiled, realizing Derek must be the same person blackmailing Gabriel. Manny glowered, brandishing a pistol from under his jacket. "Back off! This is none of your business!" But Derek just chuckled, ignoring the threat. He looked at Gabriel. "I came to see if you'd made up your mind, Stanton. Pay me, or I ruin you. But looks like we have another extortionist in the mix." Gabriel's jaw clenched, eyes darting between Manny's gun and Derek's smug posture. "You two know each other?" "Hardly," Derek said, lip curling. "But we have the same interest, your money." "Stay out of this," Manny growled. "The woman is ours to use as leverage." Eva pressed herself against a wall, horror pulsing through her veins. The swirling tension threatened to explode. Manny waved the gun, Derek scowled at Manny's intrusion, and Gabriel stood protectively near Eva. Suddenly, Manny aimed the weapon at Derek. "You show up now, messing with my plan? I told Eva to come alone, no one else. I'll kill anyone who gets in the way." Lightning lit the sky again, revealing Derek's face twisted in alarm. "You're crazy," he spat, stepping back. Gabriel seized the moment. He inched forward, hands raised placatingly. "Manny, listen. Nobody has to die. Put the gun down. We can talk about a settlement if that's what you want." Manny sneered. "You think I'm bluffing?" Thunder rumbled, shaking the walls. Eva stared, breath shallow as Manny's finger tightened on the trigger. In a split-second reflex, Gabriel lunged forward, swatting Manny's arm. The gun roared, echoing in the confined space. Sparks flew from a metal support beam. Manny staggered, and in that heartbeat, Gabriel's guard dashed from the doorway, tackling Manny to the ground. They struggled, the weapon clattering across the stained concrete. Derek stumbled aside, eyes wide, wanting no part in gunfire. Eva cried out, rushing to Gabriel, who now stood breathing hard, adrenaline surging. Manny bellowed curses, pinned by the guard's weight. Sprawled on the floor, Manny snarled at Eva. "This isn't over! You can't hide your kid forever!" But the guard swiftly subdued him, twisting Manny's arm behind his back. Gabriel grabbed the dropped pistol, removing the magazine. His chest heaved with breath. "Call the cops," he told his guard. "We're ending this now." Eva's entire body trembled. She sank against a cracked wall, tears threatening to spill. Everything had erupted so fast. Gunshots, threats, the collision of blackmailers. Derek lingered by the broken doorway, gaze flicking from Manny's prone form to Gabriel's determined stance. "I guess your security's better than I thought," he muttered. Then, with a sneer, "Still doesn't change our deal, Stanton. Pay me or face scandal." Gabriel glared. "You think I'll pay you after you just watched me shut down Manny's threat? I'm done playing." Derek's jaw tightened. He took a half-step back, as if ready to bolt into the rain. "Don't push me. I can leak your secrets in seconds." But sirens wailed in the distance. Someone else must have heard the gunshot and called the police. Derek hesitated, eyes darting left to right. Weighing his odds, he snarled, "You'll regret this," and fled into the stormy night. Gabriel's guard called after him, but Manny was still pinned, more dangerous in the moment. "Let him go," Gabriel ordered. "We'll handle him separately." Eva slid down to a crouch, heart pounding. Gabriel knelt next to her, voice soft. "Are you hurt?" She shook her head, tears brimming. "No, but I thank you. You saved my life." Outside, red and blue lights flickered through the pouring rain. The guard waved down the arriving police. Manny cursed anew, thrashing against the hold. Eva swallowed thickly, mind spinning from the shock. She realized Gabriel had come for her, found her in the midst of mortal danger. Somehow, he knew she needed help, though she hadn't asked. She forced steady breaths, tears slipping down her cheeks. Police officers rushed in, guns drawn, voices barking. Gabriel raised his hands in a sign of compliance, explaining quickly that Manny had threatened them, that a second suspect fled. The guard's professionalism and Manny's firearm were enough evidence to clarify the immediate scenario. Within minutes, Manny was handcuffed, ranting about bosses and debts that needed paying. The station reverberated with the swirl of flashlights, radio chatter and swirling rain. Eva leaned against a cracked pillar, head throbbing. One of the officers approached gently, taking her statement. She spoke haltingly, describing Manny's threat, the phone call, the fear for her child. Through it all, Gabriel stood nearby, meeting her gaze with unwavering concern. Eventually, Manny was hauled away, and the police took contact information from Gabriel and Eva for follow-up. Derek Sanders was gone, but at least Manny's immediate threat had been neutralized. As the chaos subsided, Eva found herself outside under a sagging canopy, the drizzle still coming down. Gabriel joined her, offering his jacket. "You're soaked," he said softly. She pulled the jacket around her shoulders, warmth contrasting the chill that had seeped into her bones. Their eyes met in the dim glow of police cruiser lights. "Gabriel, I'm sorry you got involved," she whispered. "I never wanted you to—" He shook his head. "Don't apologize. I'm just glad I got here in time." A ragged sigh left his lips. "I suspected something was off when I heard about Roland Green, Derek's threats. Then you didn't respond last night." Eva's eyes widened. "Roland Green is my half-brother. We haven't spoken in years. I never told you because I left that life behind, but apparently they never gave up on using me." He exhaled, shoulders sagging. "And Derek is blackmailing me, trying to blame me for Roland's downfall. I promise I won't let him drag you or Amelia into this." A quiet moment lingered between them, punctuated by the sigh of the rain. Sirens receded as Manny was driven away for booking. Eva trembled, the aftershock of adrenaline wearing off. She realized how dangerously close she'd come to losing everything. Her voice quavered. "Thank you for protecting me tonight. Amelia?" Gabriel drew a breath, fighting his own lingering fear. "Eva, from now on, you're not alone in this. I know you have pride, but your daughter deserves safety. Let me help, even if it's just making sure no one can threaten you again." Tears slipped free, mingling with raindrops. She nodded, overwhelmed by relief and gratitude. Yes, okay." As the final police officer came by to wrap up details, Gabriel and Eva exchanged a look of mutual resolve. The swirling secrets were far from fully unraveled. Derek was still out there, and the potential for scandal remained. But they'd taken a stand, refusing to be pawns in the tangles of old debts and resentments. When at last they left that desolate service station, the storm clouds began to part, revealing the faintest glow of moonlight overhead. Eva huddled in the warmth of Gabriel's coat, leaning on him for support. And Gabriel, feeling a surge of protectiveness he hadn't known he possessed, guided her toward his waiting car. In the days and weeks to come, they would face more challenges. Derek might attempt another ploy. Roland's name could resurface. The media might sniff around. Yet, in that raw moment, neither of them stood alone. A mother fighting for her child, a CEO striving to guard those he cared about. Together, they would confront any new wave of threats. For Amelia, for each other, they stepped into the night's aftermath with cautious hope. And though the shadows of the past still lingered at the edges of their world, a small yet undeniable certainty bound them together. Sometimes an unexpected encounter can spark a family one never knew existed, forging a bond stronger than fear itself. If you enjoyed this story, don't miss the next one. Just click on the screen.